So
Yes.
I guess I won't.
Yeah, can you have, I would appreciate it, but can I kindly deny that this morning?
Okay, we won't make your job any harder than it is. All right, sounds good.
Okay, bye.
All right, so Madam Clerk, do you think everyone is on now, or should we give them a couple minutes? Is everyone good? Corey, are you there? Can you hear me?
We have everyone on.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then Anne, if I can only get so many panels on here, so if I miss someone, let me know. And then I know there's a delay, so if anyone wants to speak, you can just sort of go ahead and chime in. You don't have to refer back to me so that the conversation flows, but at the same time, there's always that little delay, so it's kind of awkward. So if anyone ever wants to speak, just sort of chime in and don't worry about protocol. Easier that way. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Nice to see you. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, why don't we have Mr. Farahi lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good job. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning. Councilwoman Bybee.
Here.
Mr. Chapman.
Present.
Mr. Farahi.
Here.
Ms. Keel.
Here.
Mr. Lucy.
Here.
Mayor Sheevy.
Here.
Ms. Silver.
Here.
Mr. Sturbins.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to send it right back to you. Do you have any public comment at this time, Madam Clerk?
We have no public comment at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, moving right along. I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda. May I get a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Sturbins.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next up, item D, approval of the minutes of the December 3rd, 2020 Board of Directors meeting. May I get an approval?
Madam Chair, I do have a correction to the minutes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Just a small one. At the beginning, it shows board members present and it has our Mayor Ed Lawson listed instead of me. And I know we look a lot alike, but
I was just going to say, you don't look like Ed. So.
he doesn't wear pearls. You know, what can I say? The rest of the meeting, I was quoted on my comments, but in the opening, board members present, if I could ask for a correction. And with that correction, I would move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're doing a good job here. Okay, item E, I believe, is next up. This is for the RSCVA Board appointment of Nevada Resort Association Board of Directors seat. We have two candidates here. We have Mr. Rick Murdoch from El Dorado Resorts and Mr. Don Goodman. So with that, may I get a motion?
So actually, Madam Mayor, I just want to jump in here. So this is the appointment of the seats is open to discussion by the entire board.
Okay.
Only voted on by the 3 elected officials. And this is a 2-year term for a vacant seat that commenced back in December and with this appointment to be effective immediately. Just want to get that on the record.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're not giving them any lag time. They're just jumping right in. Okay, gotcha. So with that being said, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing that there is none, I am going to send it to you, Chairman Lucy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Sorry.
I appreciate the opportunity, and we do respect that the NRA sent us over 2 applications this morning for both Don Goodman and Mr. Rick Murdoch. At this time, I would make a motion that we appoint Mr. Rick Murdoch back to the board of the RSCVA as the NRA representative.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for calling on you. I wasn't going to make your life harder today, but I appreciate you giving us a motion. Okay, with that being said, any discussion?
I'll second that motion.
All right. I believe Councilwoman Bybee.
Do you need a second, or you just need my vote?
You need a second. We need a second from just the electeds.
From the electeds, okay. Yeah, I was waiting to see if it was from the electeds. I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Rick Murdoch. Is Mr. Rick Murdoch here?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor and Chairman of our CVA.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. No rest for the willing. Okay, then you're right on. Okay, here we go. All right. Now we're going to head into item E2, and this is going to be the legislative preview. And we have the ever so wonderful Jesse Wadhams. If you don't know him, to know Jesse is to love him. Probably one of the most well-liked lobbyists. I don't even want to call you that, but in the business. But anyway, so the floor is yours, Mr. Wadhams. Take it away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that introduction. Yeah, maybe I'll go with a legislative advocate. You know?
Okay, there. I like it.
Again, for the record, my name is Jesse Wadhams with the law firm of Black & Wadhams. I really do appreciate the opportunity to get to a chance to give you guys an overview of the 2021 legislative session, and also the opportunity to say to this board that I really appreciate getting a chance to work with you guys and represent the Reno Tahoe area and all that makes it great, because I live here and dealing with the snow, but also dealing with the great stuff that we have to offer. So I appreciate the opportunity. The session starts on Monday. The constitutional mandates of the legislature start the first Monday of February and run 120 days. So that's the end of May 31st is, I think, the last day. I got to tell you, I've done this a long time, and this one's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. The building at this point is going to be closed. It appears that the Legislative Council Bureau and the leadership are going to run the session mostly as they did during the 2 special sessions, which I can kind of talk about. Those were closed sessions. The building was closed, but the hearings and the votes were all online, streamed either through YouTube or through various other legislative means, and you could call in to present on a bill. It was a 2-minute or 3-minute, depending on the particular hearing. Just simply those in support, 2 minutes each, those opposed, 2 minutes each. It created I think, for lack of a better word, a lot of logistical and sort of procedural issues. So we'll see if they've sort of sorted those out. They still haven't given us any real understanding of how, say, the Assembly, Commerce, and Labor Committee is going to work. Will that be in an individual breakout session? How will they run various hearings? Just to give you sort of a by the numbers of the special session under this sort of constraints, we had 16 bills that were considered in the 19 days of the special sessions this summer. So logistically, it just kind of becomes a grind trying to walk through these bills that way. The whole session, the theme of this session, it's going to begin and end with the budget that has been presented by Governor Sisolak. I'm sure you guys have seen the news. The general budget is about $400 million less over this biennium than it was in the last biennium. The early preview of the budget that's kind of been walking through over the last week shows that it shows the level of the cuts and the hit the pandemic and the shutdown has done. But you can also hope, see some signs of hope and see some signs of life, particularly in some of the numbers starting to rebound. And so one of the things the budget does is sort of not only allows some usage of the Federal CARES Act fund to see if they can backfill particularly education funding, but it does allow some leeway to be adjusted in May when the Economic Forum provides their final numbers for what the budget will be going forward. So every piece of policy, every piece of legislation, it's going to sort of be viewed in that prism of the budget and what the effects are on the economy, the recovery, and how we move forward with the social safety net. Right now, we see about 887 BDRs have been filed so far, 167 pre-filed bills, which is really not, that's it's not the whole slew of bills we'll see, but it is a fair number for this early in the legislative process. So they're going to try to front load a fair amount of bills. Most of these are agency bills, so they're like the Division of Insurance, the Department of Wildlife, those sorts of bills. So we really haven't gotten into those legislative bills, the meat of the policy that will happen in a normal session, which would see typically around 1,500 to 1,800 BDRs and another probably 1,000 bills. So I tend to think we'll see a relatively smaller number of bills overall, probably a relatively smaller number of policies that move forward. But again, we'll see kind of how the session lays out. They do intend to at least try to open it probably in the April-May timeframe is sort of my guess based upon what they've said about vaccines and such. So, but I don't think it's going to be a full open at any rate. I think the bill report, my early look at the bills for you guys is in your bill packet. Probably about half dozen bills that we're tracking through economic development, a couple of revenue raising bills that could impact room tax. There's a couple of bills on, say the film tax or attempting to diversify the economy. So I think those are going to be the large themes of the session generally. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, the one thing I did want to point out is while we will be stopping in May 31st, I did hear this morning on the radio that the census data is now delayed until at least after July. So this is a redistricting year. Under every 10 years, the Nevada legislature, as does our Congress, mandated to redraw all the legislative seats throughout the state. And so if that census data is delayed until after July, we are absolutely going to have a special session sometime this year to look at that, which also opens the possibility of any look back, depending on what the governor wants to set as a potential agenda in what is a guaranteed special session at this point. So happy to answer any questions to the extent I can at least give you some insight onto what is going to be the most unique session we have had in this state's history so far. So.
Well, that's for sure. Does anyone have any questions for Jesse?
Madam Mayor, I just have one quick one if I can.
Go right ahead.
So just remember at the last session, there was some interest, I believe it originated out of the NRA, to add an additional $2 surcharge. At that session, $1, I believe, was to deferred maintenance and $1 to air service. And I know that got pulled. Is there any conversation that you are picking up in that regard? I know obviously adding surcharges right now probably isn't the right position, but I know that has come up a couple of times.
It's a great question because obviously that's kind of one of those things that in 2019 we would have said, oh, this is kind of a longer term conversation. We probably want to continue that. But I think you hit the nail right on the head. The fact is, what we hear everywhere, particularly with gaming, because of its impact and import in the state, particularly in Southern Nevada. No, there's not been any new discussion on that. I think at this point that is I would call it a tabled discussion for now. Maybe it'll return 2023. We'll hopefully be in the position to talk about new fees.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Jesse, the only question I have is based on the numbers of the census, I had also heard that we might be able to get an additional congressional seat.
You know, usually over the last couple of censuses, Madam Mayor, you're right. We picked up seats in the last couple. I have not heard that we are in that, but you know, the things you might be hearing are different. I think right now the ones I've heard look like Utah might pick up a seat. I think right now we are probably not, but I think we'll have to just see where the numbers ultimately.
Okay. Any idea on those numbers? How'd we do? I know I was competing with Las Vegas half the time, so.
Well, I know we were always stay a little step ahead. I have not heard. You know, it's been relative. You know, even the state demographer hasn't really said much that I have picked up on in the meetings I've watched. It seems to be sort of wait and see, because I think we're unpacking what happened economically, especially in Southern Nevada.
Okay. Well, good to know. I wish you a ton of luck. We're keeping our fingers crossed. With that being said, I know it says for possible action, but it doesn't really look like we have too much to throw at you, unless anyone else would like to give Jesse some marching orders.
It's quite early yet. There will be some things that come up soon. But,
Okay.
I would
All
assume,
right.
Madam Chair, that we will be getting updates as bills that would be of interest start surfacing up. I'm sure we'll.
Sure, of course. Absolutely.
just
And-
process-wise, I send a bill report and an overview of sort of the week that happened in the legislative session. So you'll be getting that, and I suspect Corey can put that into the bill packet or your
Yeah.
bill packet.
Madam
like,
Mayor, do we need a motion just to accept his report today? Or
Mr.
no?
Kennedy, no, we're fine. No,
I think we're okay.
okay,
thank you.
great. And Jesse, we'll just keep you in the loop. And I know that usually you jump in on our meetings when stuff is sort of coming down the pipe. So we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. All right. Okay. So moving right along, this is item E3, and I can't wait for you guys to meet Roger Dow. I don't know if any of you have met him, but it's great that Charles has him on our agenda. He, I don't think, is logging on until 9:25. Am I correct, Charles?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe it's correct. He's not here yet.
Okay, perfect. So just let me know, Charles, whenever he is. I'm excited for you guys to meet him. He's fantastic, very well respected throughout the travel industry, president and CEO of US Travel. So great guy. And okay, with that being said, we're going to move past item A3, and then we will just jump on to item E4. And this is the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority update, which I'm really excited about. And I think I see you there, Darren.
Good morning, Mayor. Chief.
You look like a true pilot there.
This is great audio. I'm also working aircraft right now. Sorry if it's...
Yes, I love it. You're really jumping into that role over there at the airport. Great. Well, we're happy to see you, and I'm going to give you the floor. So take it away, Darren. And if any of you have not met Darren, he's the wonderful new CEO over at the airport. And so reach out to him. He's a wealth of information too. So go ahead. Take it away, Darren.
Thank you, Mayor Sheevy and Board of Trustees. It's great to be with you all this morning. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the airport, give you an update of how things are going. Corey, are you going to bring up the slides and click through them? Is that the plan? That is the plan. Great. You know, there's a lot going on, of course, and Corey, you can go ahead. Next slide, please. And, you know, it's first and foremost, I just want to say it's been a phenomenal 6 months for me. We're right there at the 6-month mark as in the new CEO role here. And I'll do a quick background. I think you all know who we are. We own and operate the 2 airports here at Stead and of course RNO. And we're governed by just an outstanding 9-member board of trustees. And I want to take a moment and thank everybody who's part of this organization that sends us trustees. So the City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, and of course this body, the RSCVA. It's been one of the highlights for me is getting to know and work with our 9 board members and led by our chairwoman, Jessica Safraza, who has been a huge help to me, helping guide me through the first 6 months and get to know the area, understand the issues. She's just been a huge support. And of course, Daniel Farahi representing us on your board. It's been great to get to know Daniel and all his keen insight in air service and what we're doing here. And thank you for sending us Carol Chaplin, our past chair. Carol has really helped me understand the differences between what's happening in the lake versus what's happening here in the valley and being able to look at the big picture. Each of our board members has really helped me in their own way be successful in my first 6 months. And I'm just really excited to continue to work with them. I think you all know we are a vital economic engine. Pre-pandemic, more than $3 billion in annual economic impact. We normally have around 280 employees. We're less than that right now. I'll talk about that in a minute. And more than 3,000 people work at the airport with all the various different companies. So it's just a really important economic engine. Next, please, Corey. Prior to the pandemic, 2019, we did 4.5 million passengers. We had 10 passenger airlines. We still do. I'm happy to say we have not lost any of our airlines due to the pandemic. That is a really key priority for us. We still have our 3 cargo carriers. Of course, we have a CBP facility for our Guadalajara flight and international charters and other international service. Maybe we can acquire in the future. And of course, our own enterprise fund out here. So our own police, our own fire, airport operations. It's a 24/7 enterprise operation. And we keep it running with all our resources day in and day out. And it's running today. I'm just anecdotally here. We've only had a couple cancellations yesterday, none today. A storm like this would have shut Portland down for a week, I think. It's just really impressive to see the staff, airline staff, airport staff work through inclement weather like this. And it's just business as usual, turning airplanes and keeping people's travel plans intact. So I'm just honored to be part of this team. Next, please. Perfect time for me to jump in as a new CEO, right? We've set the bottom really low and there's nowhere to go but up. And it has been an exciting ride, to be sure, in many different ways the first 6 months. And I'm certainly enjoying every minute of it. You know, prior to this pandemic, this airport in this region was on an incredible trajectory. We were seeing 6,000 passengers getting on airplanes in March, and it was down to 300 by April. So, I mean, just a catastrophic effect on air travel, as I know you all know. And like a lot of organizations, the RTAA took a lot of immediate action to stabilize our financial situation. And I'll go through some of those numbers in a minute. The big thing was pivoting to public health as our primary messaging and focus, whether it was mask requirements or advertising and promoting safety versus promoting new routes. Focusing on what we were doing in the airport to make it clean and safe and really sanitizing it and fighting COVID-19 on every surface. And just a shout out to our custodians who are on the front lines in a large public transportation facility, working to keep all of us safe and in harm's way, honestly, out there and cleaning every speck of the airport. And it's never been cleaner and safer than it is today. And it's probably true for all airports. That was a major shift that our industry has had to make, and we're still in that mode of really promoting safety of air travel and safety of flight when people are ready and comfortable and able to move around again. Next, please. Quick snapshot here of our total annual passengers. You've probably seen this last year when Marilee gave her presentation. My numbers look a little different than they did a year ago, and this is what we're up against. You can see going into the Great Recession and the struggle coming out of the Great Recession, but then what a 5-year run at the airport of just growth year in and year out. And were it not for the pandemic, 2020 was posed to be a record-breaking year in many ways. at RNO. And of course, that's not the reality. And you see there, our number for 2020 is going to be around 2 million. That's not an official number yet. We're still closing the books, but we're pretty confident that's almost exactly where we ended up. So down 55%. Next, please. More importantly, how are we doing against the rest of the country, right? All airports are struggling with this situation. And so the blue line there is our in-plane passengers, meaning passengers that are getting on airplanes here in Reno. And the dark gray line is the national average, basically everybody else going through a TSA checkpoint. You can see we pretty consistently beat the national average, anywhere from 5 to 10, even at 1.15%. We dipped down there at the beginning of December, and we're pretty close right now. I think we see the industry stabilizing. We're all down around 60, 65% as people wait to get the vaccine. People are waiting to make travel plans right now for spring, potentially more likely summer. So I think we're kind of where we're going to be here for a while, could be a few months as the vaccine program hopefully accelerates. Consumer confidence will follow vaccination is our thinking right now. Next, please. So back to the money, you know, a tremendous challenge here to manage revenues and expenses in a time of such severe downturn. Like all airports, we received CARES Act funding, just over $30 million that we have 4 years to use. We are using it, and the job number one with the CARES Act funding is to keep the airline rates and charges flat, meaning what they were paying us in 2019, we don't want to change. And the way it normally works is when our revenues fall off, airline rates and charges increase to make up the difference so that we always have what we need to pay our bills. And what we have done in agreement with the airlines is we're bringing that CARES Act funding into our budget to supplement so that their rates do not go up. That's really important to them right now. Obviously, their financial situation is really challenging, and airport rates and fees is something they're paying close attention to. So I'm happy we're able to do that. We expect to continue doing that and pulling that funding in. This will take a few years to dig out of, to be sure. And so the CARES Act funding is just an incredibly important resource for us and our airline relationships. For our budget, we forecasted down 57%. We're very close to that. Revenues, a decline of 33%. You can see we cut our operating budget there more than 14%. The big saving grace for us that has allowed us to really stay close to budget is that we've had a lot of vacancies through the 10 months of this pandemic. A number of people retired that were eligible to retire. Some people didn't want to work anymore, or they didn't want to work at an airport, a large public transportation facility during a pandemic. And so we've had attrition. And that is creating budget bandwidth for us. We are being very careful to add back really just essential positions so we can keep the airport operating, the doors open, but it's creating budget savings that is really helping us. I want to give a huge amount of credit to the senior leadership team at the airport who on June 1st of last year took a 5% pay reduction, just knowing we were facing an unprecedented financial situation. And then, you know, all salaries were frozen, no incentive pay, of course. We deferred $9 million in capital improvement projects, and in September implemented for all of our civil service employees a 1 unpaid day off a month, which equates to a 5% budget savings. And so all of these levers were pulled to try and stabilize our expenses and more closely match revenues. I'm happy to report that on February 1st, we are returning all salaries to their normal levels, no more furloughs or salary reductions. Our budget is in really solid shape. We've made it through really the key months that we were most concerned about, not knowing where the bottom was. And we're cautiously optimistic right now that we're going to be able to navigate the rest of this fiscal year and begin a slow recovery. Next, please. Just a couple snapshots here on what the numbers actually look like. Operating revenues there. Blue line is the good old days leading up into the pandemic, where we were, you know, during that period of really busy activity that I noted. You can see how it falls off and then slowly started to come back a little bit May and June. The black line is the budget that we set beginning July 1st, hoping that we could maintain that. And the green line is how we're doing. So it's actually a good story, and that we're able to outperform our revenue expectations. A lot of that is due to diverse revenue streams that have been established at the Airport Authority through land leases and non-aeronautical development, so that we're not completely beholden to the airline industry, and have a more diverse base of revenue. So that is a good story for us. Next, please. So how do we dig out of this hole? Mayor Sheevy, I think that's a picture of you at one of our air service launches. We certainly hope to, we want to have you back out to do some more of those, you know, in the future as we see success there. But really the key is going to be the amazing network of partnerships that this region has. And this was part of the appeal to me of this role. And as I've gotten here and started to navigate it, it's just a really impressive network of organizations committed to growing prosperity in this region. And, you know, I'm a full partner in that, in spite of all the social distancing, trying to build a network of my peers. Charles and I have already had several conversations of the things that we can work on together and collaborate on. Mike Kazmierski and I have talked about what's happening and all of the positivity that we see coming through EDAWN and people and businesses leaving California. We're paying close attention to that. Those are our future customers. I've just recently joined the Chamber of Commerce Board, so I'm excited to work with Ann and her team and really forge close ties. Business travel is going to change significantly, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that unfolds, and I'm excited to work with our chamber. Of course, our partnerships with Reno and Sparks and Washoe County and state and federal, I mean, they're all critically important, and working on things together, identifying your goals and how we can support them, and just being super transparent and pushing and sharing information is going to be key. Bill Thomas and I have talked about North Valleys and what RTC and the RTAA can do together to help open up that development with surface transportation needs. UNR is a great partner. Data is our best friend right now, trying to understand what's happening in our region, what's happening with our customers, and in our catchment area, what's happening in some of the surrounding communities. Those are our customers too, and understanding consumer behavior is going to be key. Most importantly is RASC. Thank you. And no, you're good. RASC, Regional Air Service Corporation. You know, this was a fascinating concept to me that I hadn't seen anywhere else. And when I got here and really understood it, it is a secret weapon for us and what is going to be an arms race among communities to get air service back. We've all lost air service. Every community is going to want back what they used to have. And RASC and its impressive collection of members, you can see there, it is all the key stakeholders in the region speaking with one voice, pooling their resources. And when we go knock on doors in Atlanta and Chicago and Dallas and have one voice for our entire region, we're able to bring resources to bear. That is going to be a difference maker, because it's going to be a long line of communities banging on boardroom doors at airline corporate headquarters, trying to get back air service or get something new. So obviously RSCVA's role in RASC is critically important, being able to generate funding. And I understand we first have to survive and we have to maintain financial viability. But as our recovery begins and our resources start to grow, being able to bring revenue guarantees, airlines are going to be looking for that. I mean, it's obvious they're going to want business risk mitigation. They're going to want routes that generate revenue for them. And we're going to be all in this together. But having this mechanism in place is a huge, huge advantage to us. And thank you to Andy for his leadership of RASC. Next, please. Airlines already know that we are a good value proposition and that we have here in Northern Nevada is unique in many ways. And just this list in front of you right now is really how you see them coming back to the market. There's already routes that are back in the fall. And these are routes that while we're talking to the airlines, they're not going to do it unless they think it's going to make money for them and that it's going to work. And you can see we've got some stuff coming back in the spring. Airline vision right now is about 30 days out, and that you don't know beyond 30 days if a plane is actually going to be here. And so we keep our expectations in the right place, but we are seeing good trends already. You see some cities there that are important to us that we have seasonally. We're hoping to get back to full year. In red, there is Palm Springs, which was a great story in that Alaska came to us. This was not on our radar, and they wanted to do Palm Springs. They wanted a revenue guarantee. RASC and the RSCVA stepped up with the guarantee they were looking for. And as we got here to January and California was just locked down, Alaska's pulled that back and decided they don't want to fly that, and they'll hold it for next year. But it's a great story for us, and that an airline comes to our region with an idea, we step up, we partner, we enter into an agreement, we build the relationship. They also added LAX twice a day, which they are continuing. We're hoping for more great things with Alaska and all of our airline partners. So there's just a little sample there of the success. JSX, another great story, started service in the fall to Burbank. Now Orange County has started. They're doing great. It's a unique hop on, hop off through the private business aviation side of the airport. And we think that we have really bright things ahead for growing JSX here as well. Next, please. In spite of the challenges, we're still trying to create an air service strategy and having a plan, even if you have to continually adjust the plan. Really, it's hanging on to what we have today, an obvious step number one, but also expanding where we have seasonal or where we have temporarily suspended markets, getting those back, and then ultimately getting back in the game of attracting air service to markets that we haven't had before. Next, please. What's going to drive that is consumer behavior more than anything. It's when do people want to fly again, and where do they want to fly to, and how do we fit into that kind of consumer mindset? Recent and the upcoming residential and commercial development here, what we hear coming from EDON is incredible growth, and that will be part of the drivers here. The migration to Northern Nevada in general, this will all create customers for the airport. There's certainly pent up travel demand. Leisure travel is going to lead the recovery. People are tired of being at home. You just have to feel like you can safely leave or that you've been vaccinated and you can travel. We're expecting to see that come back late spring. Airlines are really starting to point at Memorial Day now as a launching point for a return to, bigger numbers of air travel. Of course, we have unique value offerings here in the great outdoors and the great indoors, and how you can blend those vacation opportunities. And the reality is that international travel is going to be slow to come back. And I mean, how many of us are going to Europe this summer or Asia? It's going to be a lot of people looking for those domestic destinations, and we're high on that list. This creates opportunities for us with our airline partners. And another exciting thing is the MAX 800, 900 is back in the air again. And that is a next generational aircraft that has performance capabilities that the existing generation does not have. And that means something here. When your airport is a mile high, aircraft performance is important. And we think that airplane is going to open up some markets for us that we might not have been able to do before in the summertime. And we're already talking with Boeing about possibilities, and with Southwest and Alaska, who are both acquiring that aircraft. Next, please. Just a quick list. I won't run through all these in the interest of time, but just so you know, we do have a list of the markets that are seasonal, what we're aiming for in expanding these markets, getting them back if they were temporarily gone, and there's 11 on this list, and these are conversations we're having with the airlines, either informally or ultimately formally, making presentations to them of what we think we can get back. And as you saw a couple of slides ago, we've already have some of these back seasonally. And so then the goal will be to grow it to full year-round service. Next, please. Here's our list of, we haven't been to these markets before, and this may be more 2022, 2023 goals, but ultimately as we rebound and recover, we want to keep our eye on those markets that are growing, that we think we have growing demand for here. When there's an opportunity for an airline conversation about potential service, these are conversations we're also having with RASC so that we make sure we are aligned on our goals, and also with EDON and our business travelers as corporate headquarters move here. What are their needs? Where should we aiming for in terms of achieving new routes and having some of those celebratory events at the airport that we hope to get back to very soon. Next, please. No matter what route we're talking about, we know travel is going to look different. It already looks different, but it's going to be slow to bring back international. There will be technology changes. They're already happening. We're still trying to wrap our head around digital vaccination passports or a travel pass. What are we going to have in order to get on an airplane? Are we going to have to be tested in the airport? Are we going to have to prove vaccinations? I mean, it's all up in the air right now. Technology will lead us back, and the airline industry will adapt. This is the 9/11 equivalent to public health in an airport, right? Security changed forever in an airport after that event. So will our approach to public health in the airport and airline processes, and the industry will adapt. We know outdoor travel will remain popular. This health and safety trends are here to stay. We'll see a lot of fair deals, and I think especially for this summer, that'll hopefully stimulate demand, and hopefully we're far enough in the vaccination program that the restrictive travel requirements will be going away, and we can really get back after it. Airline customer loyalty programs will change, and it's hard to tell how, but the airlines are hurting for money, but those programs will certainly still continue, and there'll be more impulse buying as we get to this summer. People feel safe, they're ready to get out of the house, and they may buy tickets last minute. Next, please. A couple more slides here. I've talked about growth and recovery, and I want you all to know we are planning for growth and recovery and thinking about 2025 and beyond. Airport infrastructure takes a long time to create, and so we don't really get to stop, even though it may get more challenging at times. There's a couple things on this slide I want to highlight for you. We are now entering design for an expansion of the ticketing hall, so where you check in and drop your bags. That's tight. It's very confined in there. We really want to push that out towards the roadway, lift up the ceiling, create more room, add some restrooms in there. So that'll be a really positive improvement that will hopefully be under construction in 2022. Airlines are still very supportive of that project. You see in green there, new concourses. We're now beginning a planning study this month to evaluate whether we remodel our concourses, reconstruct, tear down and build new. That'll be a long-term project, but they're 30, 40 years old. You've likely been in there. It's kind of tight, kind of low ceilings, a little dark. Airport architecture is incredible now, and there'll be some great things we can explore doing and really build for the next generation. You see there the Conrack, it says, and Ready Return. So that's really an expansion of our rental car infrastructure. Rental car market is very strong here in Reno. They're out of space, and while we've got a temporary reprieve, they will need space again soon. And that's a placeholder. What we're going to do this year is take a look at several options for a rental car infrastructure expansion, and also look at our other airport front door needs. Many different vehicles access the airport for many different reasons. We want to make sure we're thinking long-term and that we create equal access and opportunity for all of our customers. And so hopefully by the end of this year, my board will have something in front of them that they can review and approve as sort of a final development plan. And then we will partner with the rental cars and move forward. The last thing I want to highlight is that Stellar in the purple there at the top. That is a $20+ million private sector investment in business aviation and general aviation and hangars and a terminal building. It's where JSX will operate out of. This is something any airport would love to have, and it speaks volumes about our aeronautical activity here in Reno. We have a lot of people moving airplanes out of California, wanting to hangar them at STED or RNO. We're full at both airports, and we need more hangars. And Stellar FBO partner is really making a huge investment. We're excited about that with them. Next slide, please. Last slide. STED Airport, not last, not least. It's an exciting place. We have 3,000+ acres up there, as many of you know. It's a complicated development opportunity. We're working with a master developer, Michael Dermody, and we're in the environmental assessment process now for his phase 1, which are 2 large light manufacturing facilities there. You can see it on the right and on the left there at the bottom there in blue. Even more importantly is recent FAA environmental approval for our Lemon Drive utility corridor, which is a major east-west corridor, opening up opportunities for other non-aeronautical development off the airport, but an important role for the airport to play in helping our regional partners bring land to bear to accommodate our growth. We hope to see aeronautical businesses there as part of Dermody's development as well, and light manufacturing, light tech, just in high wage jobs is the goal we all have. And so it's a long-term play. I'm anxious to see where we're at in 3 to 5 years and even a decade from now of what's happened at that airport. That is my last slide. That is a lot of information. Hopefully you feel like that's a good update on things that are happening here at the airport. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Mayor Sheevy. And
All right, tremendous job, Darren. I mean, wow, that is impressive. It really is. I'm so glad that you were able to give us this sort of broad view of where you're going and what's going on. Just my only question, then I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions for you. Is the JetBlue flight to New York back yet or?
not yet. It is, that's a conversation that's ongoing. We've got JetBlue to California. You know, that is obviously one of those key strategic goals. And that is, we have conversations ongoing with JetBlue and hope to certainly get that one back. That was a hard one for this region to get. I know
Yeah.
I've heard some of that history. So fingers crossed that those are exactly the kind of markets that we think we can get back sooner rather than later.
Well, I love that flight, and I know Anne has family right there, so she wants it back too. So let us know, right? Let us know how we can make any of that
Absolutely.
happen.
Absolutely.
And the Jet3X is so impressive, and I know Daniel and your whole board, Jessica, everyone over there was so supportive, but it's really impressive. And anytime I am anywhere and people have been to Reno, first thing they say, I just love your airport. I mean, everyone tells me that. And I love that because, you know, we all like it, you know, as much as convenience as possible when we're traveling to make our lives easier. So Darren, fantastic job. And your team over there is just praising you. So you should be very proud. Good job.
Mayor Sheevy, thank you. Breaking news, apparently JetBlue is returning to New York in March. So
yay! See,
all you had to do was say something and look. So it's so fluid, even I can't keep track of who says what, but that just further affirms the point that airlines understand what we have to offer here, and it's exciting.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Christina, you'll have to tweet that one out for us. Okay, I love it. That is fantastic news. Okay, do any board members have any questions for Darren? Wow, no questions? That means you've done a really good job.
Silence. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Sheevy.
Madam Chair, I'll just say, as Chair of RASC, and I really appreciate Darren and his whole team. You know, they've worked really hard through this period of time for our broad community. I think Darren's leadership is really starting to take hold, which is great. And it's a pleasure partnering him from a RASC perspective. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, anyone else? No? Okay. Well, Darren, thank you. Have a great day. We'll let you get back to work there. We know how busy you are.
Thank you, Mayor Sheevy. It's great to see everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. All right. That's such a good update. I love it. It's fantastic. Okay. See, Anne, our wishes came true. It's awesome.
On a book of flight today.
Good idea. Good idea. Okay, moving on. I am going to send it now to you, Charles, because I believe that Mr. Dow is now plugged in.
He should be, and we have Roger and Sarah on board, and I'll do the introductions. We're going to go from a local perspective and update now to a national perspective, and I'm really grateful to have Roger Dow on the line with us, and I'll do a quick bio. It's a long bio, but we're going to cut it short because he has so many accolades to talk about here. Roger Dow is the president and CEO of the U.S. Travel Association based in Washington, D.C., representing all segments of travel in America. Roger regularly meets with administrative officials and congressional leaders to discuss the important travel issues, and his efforts have resulted in major policy victories for travel and travelers. Roger Dow leads a team advocating for policies to increase domestic and international inbound travel, including efforts to elevate domestic, leisure, as well as business and meetings-related travel. And he led the creation of the Visit US Coalition, a multi-industry group of 15 trade associations committed to pursuing policies that bolster international and inbound travel. Prior to joining US Travel in 2005, Roger Dow advanced through the ranks of Marriott International in a tenure spanning 34 years, where he rose to Senior VP of Global and Field Sales. He's held seats on the boards of ASA PCMA, MPI Foundation, GWSAE, the Travel Institute, and many more. I'm really grateful to have one of the most influential folks in our business join us today. Roger, thank you for joining us and welcome to Reno.
All right, Charles, I really appreciate it. And your first board meeting of 2021. Thanks for inviting me. I wish I could be there in person, and hopefully safely I'll be able to be there soon. And as you keep adding all those flights, Darren, please make sure you have one coming from DC and also St. Petersburg, where I live, because I love Reno and the opportunity in Sparks area to be there. It's such a great city you have. I had an opportunity to be there recently and spent a couple days in Tahoe and then to the city. And what a pleasant surprise, and the growth that you've got in your city and all the things to do, the restaurants. And now once you dig yourselves out of the snow, I want to come back, maybe walk along the river there if I can. I don't have snowshoes, but I will soon, and dine in some of your great restaurants. Mayor Sheevy, great to see you again. The mayor and I did a little tutorial for another state on how to build tourism, and we did it together. It was kind of fun. It's great to have a mayor who gets it, who understands the power of travel, the ability that travel can have on every part of a city. So for that, good to see you again, Hillary. And I'd like to say, you're fortunate to have my good friend Charles Harris on board. He's a great leader. For Reno Sparks, it's going to, I get to see Charles on a national level, as he works with us and you from a local standpoint. And I think between you, the mayor, and Charles, and your whole team, and Darren, what an opportunity you have to take the Reno Sparks, the Tahoe area to the next level. I mean, leisure, business travel, group, international, and really bringing your voice to our board, Charles. And what a great city. And I mean that. I speak to a lot of cities, but I was so impressed when I was there. All those Burning Man statues and all that. It's really pretty cool. Anyway, I want to thank all of you that joined us for National Plan for Vacation Day. It was just Tuesday. It was a huge success. We had 6,000 organizations participate, 9,000 on social media, 61 million impressions, broadcast and print. We got to 192 million people. And really a great chance to talk about just what you were talking about just before me, Mayor, about planning and getting those trips. Now you know that JetBlue flight's available. Grab those seats, because as Darren says, there's going to be a lot of bargains out there, but they're going to disappear soon this summer, I think. And National Plan for Vacation Day is really a way that we can really work together and discuss, how Americans can plan for their vacation. Because if they don't plan, they won't take their vacations. And I think Americans are so sick of being cooped up that they're definitely going to be traveling again. So I'd like to share a little bit about what U.S. travel is doing. I really appreciate, number one, Reno Sparks' involvement in all the good work you're doing. And the work that you're doing today is probably more important than ever before. I mean, we've been through crises as an industry, but what we've gone through and are going through right now, all of our voices are be so important to recovery. Give you a perspective of those who don't know U.S. travel. We basically represent all segments of the travel business with one goal, and that's to build travel to and within the United States. And we do that through smart advocacy, through forums, through research, webinars, hybrid events, just like we're having today, and hopefully more and more in person. And really bring together the whole industry. We've been around 75 years. I haven't. I may look that way, but I haven't been around that whole time. But I think the work we do together has never, ever been more important. 2020, to put it in perspective, was the hardest year our industry ever saw it. You look at what happened to the industry, we're going to lose $500 billion in this last year of what we thought we would have in January a year ago. Worse than that is the unemployed. In May, June, 51% of the 16 million people in the travel industry were unemployed. Put that in perspective, the Great Depression, the worst year was 1933, and only 25%, I say only 25% of Americans are unemployed. So we were twice our industry unemployed than the Great Depression. And so that's one of the big tragedies of what's going on, is how we get these good men and women back to work. Some people are saying we're not going to recover until 2025. we will. I'm not buying that at all. I've watched this industry come back before. We're going to need federal support. We're going to need stimulus to really restart our industry. 2021 is probably going to be the most important year our industry will ever have to bring back, and as you bring back tourism to and take it to the next level, it's going to be the year that's going to be so important. And I'm confident, we're on the right track to do that. And I think it's going to really be the dawn of travel's next chapter. I think it's so critical that our industry play the role in rebuilding our economy. Many years ago, it was said, as goes GM, goes America. I believe that's changed in the last decade. As goes travel, goes America. Everything is connected, not only around the country, but around the world. And I think that is so important to bring back jobs and bring back not only domestic, but international visitors. And what a destination you have for international people like the outdoors and like the mental attitude your people that there have. I think it's a very exciting destination. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to turn off my camera so I can put some slides up. I won't bore you to death with slides, but we're going to put some slides up to talk about what we've done from a legislative standpoint. And that's very important. And we've had some very big recent wins. U.S. Travel takes its role of convening people, very seriously. Our aggressive advocacy strategy relies on uniting every sector of the industry. That's airports, airlines, lodging, rental car, attractions, restaurants, skiing, all of that. And one of the most critical achievements I think we had this year, important for you, is the extension of the payroll protection program. And most important, the extension of the payroll protection program for destination marketing organizations. It was really a tragic mistake when CARES was put together that they cut out the 501c6s. That was done because they wanted to cut out lobbying firms. But in the process, they cut out the DMOs, they cut out Broadway, they cut out the museums. It was a tragic mistake. So we got that back in again. And because if you really look at DMOs, they're really the backbone of our whole travel industry and our economy. And the important work you do of, building demand and really promoting small businesses, because, we've got the big names in travel, the big hotel companies and airlines, but it's really small business. 83% of the business in travel are small businesses. And so that's why it's so important. The employee retention tax credit, and something I know is important to Darren. We worked hard with many people to get more money to the airports and the new money coming to airports, but we've got to get more for our airports to keep them in these tough times, to really help them get up to speed. I think that's so important. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to pop back on camera, if you don't mind, and talk a little bit about some other things that we're doing. We've got, I think, in a very strong position with the new administration. And I don't care what party you're in, travel wears a white hat. Travel, we're 50-50 right up the middle. So we worked with the last administration, we're going to work with this administration. And we're aligned on several fronts with some things that the Biden administration already committed. First, to handle the virus. Number one, we don't get this virus behind us. We can forget about travel and business as usual. And really providing small industry relief and our industry into small businesses. We're highly engaged with the transition team prior to the election, and now with the administration and all the new cabinet members. And we support most of what they're trying to do, but we do have a couple of concerns. What we support is the mandate to wear masks when you're traveling. I want to see those masks go away. I hate them. But the bottom line, we've got to do our job to get this thing behind us. And so no fun sitting on a plane for 3 or 4 hours with a mask on, but I'm going to do it, and we should all do it to get this behind us. One thing we're opposed to, and you may see this coming out in the next couple of days, is the CDC has recommended testing for all domestic flights. And that's a real problem. We're in favor of testing for international, because if we want to bring people into this country, we ought to get them tested and make sure they come in. But with that, we want to eliminate the quarantines. If someone's been tested and they're coming to the country, we shouldn't have to quarantine them, which some states are doing, which is a problem. We're opposed to domestic testing because it's impractical. I mean, we're talking over 1 million people a day flying on a plane. So we're going to do 1 million people every day. There's not the testing capability. And a Harvard study just came out and said being on a plane is a heck of a lot safer than being in the grocery store. So if CDC wants to test people getting on planes, you ought to test them going to the grocery stores. And so that's what you're going to see us being a little bit against that, because we're doing all the protocols are so important, and the industry is doing such a great job, hotels and everything with that. We're going to be working very much with the administration to really position travel as the solution to really drive our economy and jobs. We provided the policy priorities to the president for his first 100 days. And there's two main objectives in the short term that we want to hit. One is restore domestic travel, both leisure, business travel, and especially meetings and events. Leisure's coming back, and you're in a good place for leisure because people like outdoors, they like all the things that you have to offer. But we got to bring back business travel and meetings and events. And next priority is to safely reopen international inbound travel. That is so important. We're fortunate we have several travel champions in Congress who really understand this industry. Your senators, Cortez Masto, who's a very good friend of mine, Senator Rosen, Congress Amade, and the whole Nevada delegation has been very, very helpful to us. I mean, they really get it, and they've been behind a lot of the efforts, and some of the new things are being introduced are coming from Nevada, and that's very important. So they've been phenomenal supporters and what we're trying to do, and we need all these influential voices. I mean, I think you've got friends, you can talk to them better than I can, and just keep bringing home how important travel is, how important it is to your economy and your local economy. That's so important. But I think we really got to think big. Yesterday, U.S. Travel released our policy platform for the next year. And if we can, I'm going to pop off camera to put up a slide so we can talk about what our policy platform is going forward. First thing that's very important is it's going to be about economic recovery measures to really grow the travel economy. To increase our global competitiveness. We're not global, we're not competitive. To invest in infrastructure, I know this is very important, Darren, and the future of mobility, and how we have to look not what we can do this year, but next year and a decade from now to bring more people to your area. And to reimagine the air travel system and really look at what it can be in the next 5-10 years, and to enhance travel facilitation, biometrics, and things like that. We're also going to advocate to continue to drive the recovery and travel's role in driving the recovery. There's many steps that destinations can take and the industry can take. We have many available resources that you can go to on our website, many opportunities for you, many initiatives, many tools. I challenge, please go and use them. What we do is we pull together data from all sorts of sources, 12, maybe 15 different research firms, and put them all together in one place so you can use that to know who's traveling and what markets you want to be hitting. So please use that. Lots of webinars we have. So if you want to know more, just go on our website. It's called ustravel.org/research, and you can get access to all of our research, and that's yours, and please do use it. Also, research can really help drive market share, and it's to be clear, the most important thing we have to do and we had to start with was health and safety measures, making that a top priority to make sure that everyone knows and communicate what we're doing. But it's a shared responsibility. It's not just what you're doing, but it's what the travelers have to do. You know, wearing masks, distancing, washing their hands, all those things. If we do it, we will bring back travel more quickly. We do a lot of research on the sentiment and travel trends. And one of the big trends is, I've mentioned before, is Americans prefer outdoors. Outdoors is winning. So you've got a great story to tell. What a great thing to come to Reno, spend some time downtown and hit the outdoors. You've got a lot of opportunity there. And when you really look at it, you're in a very unique position, I think. You've got Lake Tahoe nearby. You've got the Sierra Nevada mountains. You've got the largest number of ski areas in North America. The number of golf courses you have. Now is really a chance for you to market and steal share from a whole lot of other places because you got all the pieces now. And I think that's important. We saw that with the Let's Go There campaign. We created a campaign that really tapped into telling Americans to what they could do safely, and that's plan to travel, think about travel. And I think that's so important because there's going to be, as Darren said, there's a lot of deals out there, but they're going to disappear this summer. So tell them that people plan to come to your spot, and encourage people to really use the relationship you have. I appreciate anything you can do with your peers to bring our message forward. You know, as I said, people say it's going to be 2025 when we come back. I'm not buying it. Travel's a coiled spring. I mean, people want to get out. I mean, all of our research says they want to. And we've been there before. And the reason I can say it with confidence is September 11th. After September 11th, people said people will never get on an international flight again. Yet it was followed by the greatest years of international growth ever. 2008, the Great Recession. Everyone said 30% of all travel businesses would close, going to go out of business. Didn't happen. It was followed by the 10 best years the industry's ever had, where every single month for 10 years was bigger than the month before. This last year is the hardest hit. I think 2021 is going to be the most important year to us. So I think we've got to get a renewed passion for travel and really work together on the dawn of the next traveler industry, and really show that welcoming sense that you showed visitors there and to their sense of adventure. We've got a huge opportunity ahead of us. And I just look forward to working with you. Charles, congratulations on joining there. Hillary, I wish we had 1,000 more mayors like you that care about travel. Thank you very much.
Oh, Roger, you're so sweet. My gosh, you're amazing. Thank you. That is so kind. And we're so lucky to have you and all your feedback. And I think you're right. Like, you hit the nail on the head. People are so tired of being cooped up. Like, I hate to fly more than anything. I do it because I have to do it. But I got to tell you, I am dying to get on an airplane for some reason. I mean, I think that's just, as human beings, we just, you know, being in lockdown this long, everyone is just going to want to get out there. So you make such really good points, but you're kind of, you know, this big expert in the industry. So you've seen this before, you know, the challenges, and I think you're right. It's just going to come back stronger than ever. And we do have a unique position in Reno Tahoe that people are just going to gravitate here. We're really fortunate, right? So yeah, fantastic. The other thing that you and I did talk about, I think when we were on the panel, that most cities forget about, and I think Reno, we don't forget about it because of our proximity, but is the drive markets, right? Because of that, you know, restrictions in traveling with air service and so forth, or whatever that looks like, people are really going to want to jump in their cars. And you made a great point last time we were on the panel about, you know, don't forget those drive markets, right?
You're exactly right. I mean, air is down 60, 70%. It's going to come back. Drive is only down 5%. And so what a monstrous opportunity to go regional. And you've got everything offered. You've got the access there. I think it's made for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the one that probably taught me that very early on was Jennifer Cunningham. Drive markets, Hillary, drive markets, right? So yeah, so you guys are speaking the same language. Okay, with that being said, wonderful, wonderful presentation. Wonderful to see you.
See you again.
And we can't wait to see you in Reno. We're going to show you all the hot spots that you haven't seen, all the local loves when you get here. So you'll be even more impressed. But with that being said,
I promise. I'll buy you lunch, you buy me dinner. How's that?
Okay. Well, we'll actually make Rick buy us dinner.
There we go. That's a winner.
From Mr.
I like
Murdoch.
that. Okay. Thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor?
Yeah. So I'm going to open up the floor right now for questions. Go right ahead, Charlene.
Okay. Roger, thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Charlene Bybee, I just, Spark City Council Mayor Pro Tem, and I just retired recently from a 42-year career with American Airlines as a flight attendant, flying international destinations, predominantly, more recently, Shanghai and Beijing, and I'm really glad I'm retired. It's not where I would want to be right now. But my question is on the international travel challenges of restoring that. Are you, and I'm guessing the answer is yes, but as you work with the airlines themselves, those destinations and travel organizations in other countries, are you seeing, and you have to see, there's got to be some innovative solutions to that is the biggest challenge for depending where the virus is in those countries. And that's the toughest one I see. And are there innovative solutions that you're seeing on how we restore that? Because I see that as lagging behind so much more than travel within the US. And our domestic travel is important, but that international travel that all of us, trips that we planned last spring for an anniversary, that South Pacific that never happened, and how many of us like to take trips occasionally, how do we get those going again? And are you seeing some real innovative solutions as we try to tackle that problem?
That's a great, great perspective and question, Charlene. And I'm not sure if I was on a flight with you once to Shanghai, but thank you if I was. Anyway, yes, international is so important. We love the international traveler because, you know, we as Americans spend probably maybe $1,000 a trip. The international visitor spends $4,000. The Asian visitor spends $6,000, $7,000. So that's why it's so important. The biggest problem we have, Charlene, internationally is there's no consistency. I don't know what I have to do to go to Germany. The Germans have no idea to come to the US or so the first thing, and I'm on the phone every single Monday with World Travel and Tourism Conference and Minister of Tourism to say we've got to get consistency. When you travel, as you know, been around the world, no matter where you travel in the world, going through security is about the same. You get x-rayed, you take off your shoes, you don't take off your shoes, but it's about the same. You know what to expect. We're a patchwork of different things. So we've got to get back. The testing is going to be the way to bring us back. Vaccines are going to be back. I'm not in favor of a vaccine pass that you must have to travel, because I think there's many other things. You might have antibodies, you might be on a drug that keeps you from getting it, you might have just been tested 3 days ago. I think it's going to be a layer of multiple things the way you get on a flight. But the most important thing is start getting those people back and people then telling the story. I mean, every time I come back from a trip, Charlene, people say, how was it? How was it? And I'm telling you, I'm so much more comfortable on a plane than I am in a grocery store. I mean, you know, the planes, the HEPA filters and all the stuff you know about is so important. So we've got to get that word out and we've got to spread the stories, and we're going to get the testing, and we're going to open up air bridges. And if two countries can get together, we're going to bring that back. Maybe it be UK and us or Germany and us, but the bottom line, and we're going to show the world how to get it done. But without international, we can't bring this industry back. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Good points. That's the thing. Everyone is so confused. Can I go? Can I not go? What do they require? You're exactly right. It's sort of all over the place right now. Great points. Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Roger? This is such a good time. You've got him right here, right now. So.
Well, sensing none, I just want to say thanks for inviting me. You've got such a dynamic destination. What a team you put together, and it's going to be great. And I am coming back because literally, you know, I really want to go to, what's it, Sheebles or Sheeble, or what's it, Sheetles? What's the name of the big sporting place? There's some
Shields.
Shields. Oh my God, I love that place. It's like,
Roger, it's in Sparks. I'll take you, and then we'll go to the marina, and hopefully our
perfect. All right,
and then you can have a wet woody.
I can spend. We're on. Okay, Charlene. Thanks much. Thanks for inviting me. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
All right, Roger. Take care. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Hillary. Bye-bye.
All right. That's great. Roger's great. What a wealth of information. Lucky to have him in the industry. Great guy. Okay, moving right along. I think, Madam Clerk, I know we skipped around a little bit. Let me just look at us here. We just skipped around a little bit. I believe we're now on item E5, and that's going to go to Mr. Kennedy. There you are. Do you have any legal counsel updates?
Nope, thanks, Madam Chair. I do not.
Well, that's one of those easy updates. Good job.
There you go. For you.
Easy enough, right? Okay, now we're going to head to item E6, and this is the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority CEO update. So I'm going to send it to Mr. Harris. And before I do that, Madam Clerk, do you have any public comment on any of these items? I apologize. I think I probably skipped over if you had any. Usually you kind of flag me. So if you do have any public comment on any items, just let us know before we hear any of the items. So I apologize.
Absolutely. We had no public comments in the beginning of the meeting, and I have checked periodically. We still have no public comments at this time.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to check in with you. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to send it over to Charles Harris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Roger, and thank you, Darren. Let's see if I can put this up and get us going here. All right, so first of all, as I begin my CEO update, I just want to first of all welcome Rick Murdoch back to the board. Apparently it's his second stint. He was here from April 2017 to 19, so welcome back to the board. Appreciate you being here. I'm going to lead off with our two guest speakers this morning and really what we talked about. What my goal is to bring both the local and national perspective of what we're doing when it comes to the updates and trends of what's going on. And certainly Darren and Roger were fantastic, and it adds a depth of experience and education that really helps us all to understand kind of where we're at and the trends of what's happening. And what I'll do is I'm going to go through the same. I will reiterate and talk about some of the trends and what I've been working on. I'll then pass it over per the agenda. We'll go down the sales, marketing, and the finance of where we're at. What I'd like to really focus on here is the trends of what's happening in the industry. Roger talked about a 5-year return. This was information from STR and Tourism Economics that was shared right at the end of last year. And it really talked about where demand was and where RevPAR, or revenue per available room, was, starting with 2019 as the benchmark. And as we saw, as we got into 2020, the demand dipped and the RevPAR for our hotels, for all open hotels, really dipped. And the trend of what they're predicting is they're not saying 5 years, they're really saying 4 years of what it takes to recover of what's there. But certainly that is a component of where we're at and trying to manage the expectations as we reset what's happening at the RSCVA to come out of this. Certainly, as we're talking, COVID is at the center, and COVID certainly has a major impact of what happens here. Roger's statistics that he offered, yesterday he spoke at the State of the Travel Industry, a national forum where he really updated, and he reiterated that today. The fact that unemployment peaked for the travel industry at 51% is astounding. Certainly, it's had an impact on us here locally, with more than $500 billion lost in spending. And so that was significant impacts to us. He also went on to say yesterday that it's 10 times worse than 9/11 of what that impact is. And certainly we need to navigate the best cases of the guidance from our governor of what is open and how we market and sell the destination moving forward. So COVID still plays a central role in that. The industry trends, if I look at the meeting and I share with you some of the headlines of what's been happening here, meetings has a possibility to start coming back at the end of this year. It really is the second half of what we're seeing, depending upon, again, what the vaccines look like and the impact that they can make coming out of this. Tourism jobs, as Hospitality Net talked about, a lot of those jobs could be coming back. But certainly in the Skift article, it really talks about the merger and the hybrid events of what could be taking place when it comes to meetings and conventions. And there's no one that really can predict that. We know that people want to meet, they want to meet face-to-face, but there's a certain segment that has really gotten used to this Zoom technology and what we're doing. And so we have to be able to adjust for that. And certainly in the meetings of what we go after, be prepared for that. And then folks like Moderna are saying that this COVID could be around forever. And so we have to be able to adjust of what's going on and certainly work with that. So some of the trends that we're talking about, again, data and what's important, the expectations for what's going to happen. This is surveys that went back from March when COVID started, really through the beginning of this week. And talking about the situation of it getting much better or worse of what's happening. There is an uptick, and that 35% said that things are going to be getting better. That 35%, as you can see, is at a high since it was back in May. And so we are trending correctly of where we need to be. The worse or much worse situations of over the next month, that's starting to drop. And part of that is COVID is being rolled out and it is getting into the system. So people are searching and they're looking for more possibilities of travel. Again, in partnership, this is destination analysts of the data that they're asking, and they're asking lots of different questions ongoing. I'm going to point you to the left-hand part of this screen. And the question that was asked was, how interested are you in learning about new, exciting travel experiences or destinations? Again, people are not necessarily ready to go there. For those that are, we'll talk about how we market to them, but that inspiration of where they want to go and where they think about going to, it's at 6.1, which is the highest since this survey was taken. So the trending is in the right direction of people, to Roger's point, being pent up, of the mayor saying she doesn't like to fly, but she's gonna fly, right? People have that inspiration and they do want to travel. And so the data shows that across America, people are looking towards that, and that is happening. This data, at this moment, how safe would you feel about doing each type of activity? Again, look at that difference of what's going on currently compared to where it was in the chart. And so that impact through destination analysts is having a very positive effect of people not feeling unsafe anymore as the virus vaccines roll out. And we will predict that will continue to improve as the vaccines move into the public. Again, more questions being asked and what people are looking for. This really talks about what Roger said. The question was, in general, how interested are you in taking a leisure trip, which would include some of the following things? And really, our region is set up for this beautifully. It talks about people that are looking at scenic beauty or outdoors, and 60%, 57%. Look at those things topping the list of what people are interested in 2021. And certainly we are aligned to that. Our messaging will be aligned to that. And that's how, for the leisure traveler, we will start marketing and continue our marketing for the consumers of what happens coming out of this. So this is a great list. I think we're really set up really well to take advantage of that. So when it comes to PPP, there's been talk, and Roger mentioned it, about the funding that is helping DMOs that was not covered in the first round. Certainly our finance team was all over this when this was announced and went through to figure out, is the RSCVA eligible for this type of funding? And currently, we are not eligible, and there's several reasons for that. A PPP loan can only be used to fund operations, mainly through payroll benefits, utilities, and rent. And from that, through the NRS, the Nevada Revised Statutes, we have to meet certain requirements for that. So right now, according to what our folks have researched, we are not eligible for that. Just this morning, I did talk to somebody at US Travel, and we are asking for their assistance to see if we can be. There are some glitches that have been noticed through the SBA, and US Travel has asked for their guidance, but this is a local issue that we need clarification on to see if we're open to any funding that would help us through the recovery program. So stay tuned for more information about that. In March, one of the things going on with US Travel is Destination Capitol Hill. And basically this event, which is usually in person, and as you can see on this slide, it's going to be virtual this year. It usually brings together DMO leaders from across the country and together to educate policymakers about the power of travel and what's going on. And really a national efforts of leaders across the country. There's a legislative day, there's advocacy training. This is going to be virtual this year, but certainly I'll be participating in that, representing this destination moving forward. Back to COVID, this is a cover shot that was done in January from Smart Meetings, one of the leading trade magazines for meetings and conventions. And again, look what's on the cover. It is the restart. It is about COVID and coming out of this. And I will send compliments absolutely to Ben McDonald and our agency of figuring out how do we fit into what's happening in these trade publications to make sure that Reno, Sparks, and Lake Tahoe have a presence when we're talking about events that come through here. And so they were able to place a story, it happened to be me, but it was a story about silver linings and stories from the pandemic job market, people that are changing jobs. That was part of their editorial calendar. But what it really does is helps elevate us to what's happening in the meetings and conventions on a national level so that we have some additional visibility when people are considering where to put their events. So with that, part of what's been going on and what I've been working on is really meeting with every single individual member of the staff. I've completed that for one-on-ones. I've met with all the the boards of directors, and certainly toured key Reno and Sparks facilities. And one of the things that was really unusual as that came out of this is this quote, and the person on staff who said, hey, I've been here for 20 years and I've gone through a number of CEOs, but you're really the first one that ever sat down with me one-on-one. And really that gave me some perspective about getting to know the staff, getting to know what's happening in the destination, and really understanding what we're doing and who the staff is. And we have a bunch of passionate people, and certainly want to make sure that I understand what they're doing, where the holes are, what's missing from layoffs or things that we can improve. And that was certainly beneficial as I've gone through this. This is a slide that I used when I originally interviewed for this job, and it was identifying key stakeholders who I wanted to make sure that I reached out to at different levels and of engagement. Certainly not comprehensive of everyone, but from a national, state, regional, and local level. And I just highlighted some of the ones I've already gotten to. And so certainly, the folks in South Lake Tahoe and Nevada Restaurant Association, the work's not done. I've been here for 2 months and meeting with lots of folks, but trying to identify from the national down to the local, getting embedded in this community and understanding certainly what's happening and what's going on. As far as community outreach, here's a sample of some of the folks that I've met with in the first 60 days. It's anyone from folks at the city of Sparks to our members of our police department here locally in Reno, that the Renowned Health to people in the industry, and it's learning. Even the folks at the Reno Aces, my former life in sports, and Eric, understanding really what the community is, and there's a lot more work to do. So that's certainly part of the efforts that I've been putting in. And then on the industry side, who do I need to connect with on the industry side? Certainly had the pleasure and honor of meeting the president of the Las Vegas Bureau and spoke with Steve and his team for a little bit. We're now starting to get into some of the trade associations like IAEE for potential partnerships into next year. Again, how do we elevate and talk to those decision makers of what's going on? Even I reached out to the NHL because the NHL is coming to the region for 2 regular season NHL games next month. How do we participate? How can Reno and Sparks play an active role in what's happening in the region? Can we play a part in their visit of what's happening? So that's really a sample of some of the folks that I've talked to and I've visited with so far. On the capital projects list, in the last board meeting, the board approved some needed things that we need to do. 21 projects that we need to tackle, 11 at the convention center, 10 more at the live event center, 2 different facilities. And what I did is I showed you an example of some of the projects that we have that we're going to tackle. So the signage, the wayfinding, on the left, you can see what it has been. Some of that visibility, the paint has faded. It is, it's vertical, not horizontal. And really we need to correct that and update that. And our great facilities folks have identified some of those projects which you have approved. At the bottom of this, I put 5 presented to the March board meeting. And that's because the funding for those projects are over the limit of what we can do as an organization. So we'll come back to you in March to be able to present those for your approval as we go through what we're doing. With that, I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments before I move on to my goals.
All right. Good job, Charles. I love that you showed the slide. I think it's super important that you showed the slide of, how it had the outdoor recreation at the top. I think everyone needs to really remember that and focus on that. If we're going to be a destination that everyone wants to come to, recreation, that outdoor beauty, scenery is going to be really critical. That's why I keep, hounding the message of the river. So I do hope that's something that this organization will support and realize the magnitude of an asset that we need to be utilizing that is so underutilized to attract not only people in our community, but our visitors. So I like how you showed that slide. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to ask any board members, do you have any questions for Charles? All right, you're doing your job. Good job. Okay, moving right along, Charles, take it away.
Okay, so now we're going to go into the goals and objectives. And part of that was in the contract that I had signed. It was outlined that in the January meeting that I needed to present the goals and objectives. And what I did is I wanted to make sure that I had the breadth to be able to align with what's happening in the year for the year. So it's tough. We'll have the sales and marketing folks talk about what they're doing, but I really wanted to make sure that I aligned with the board and what was happening and what you have deemed as being important or key objectives. And so part of this putting together, I was able to talk to Bill Hanberry from Searchwide and Molly, our labor attorney, and Erica from On Strategy, and certainly got input from the mayor to make sure that I was aligned with what I was going to present to you today. And really, this is part of the 8 priorities that the board had talked about and confirmed back in December. Of those 8 priorities, 6 of them really apply to the CEO. And this is just a slide that was taken that was previously used, and it really talked about the 6 of the 8 that I'm going to talk about today for your consideration for approval. The first one is really to develop the COVID recovery plan, and certainly the implementation of that is going to be key. And so the marketing, the sales folks that I'm working very closely with, and they're working so hard to make sure that we move forward. It's really to implement that and move that forward. And so as COVID restrictions allow, we will roll that out and move that certainly forward for the rest of this fiscal year, and then planning that will go into next year. But certainly we're on restriction, and we'll talk about that in the sales when Mike gives his presentation, but we're only allowed up to 50 people. So that recovery plan on the meetings and convention side can only go as far as what we're allowed to. And certainly on the leisure side, we'll come back in March and talk about the rollout plan that we have. We're covering a lot today, so I wanted to make sure that we save that, but that's certainly a point that's in there. The second thing is we need an updated strategic plan. Now, when I joined the organization 2 months ago, we really had a 5-year plan that was coming to an end. And so I've started talking to Erica already. And really what I'd like to do is focus on a 3-year plan, because as we see, the needs and the market decisions are on 3 years and not 5 years. And if we wait too long to be able to do that, it's going to become outdated. And so really a 3-year plan of what we're doing needs to happen. And so we need to start working on that right away. The last thing on this section that I put in is a customer advisory board. Now, this is really important that can provide us insight that I understand we used to have here, it went away, and I would absolutely like to bring that back. And what that is these are leaders in the industry for associations, corporate meeting planners, people who really decide on where they put their meetings and events. And so it is held in a lot of other destinations. They bring them in, they get their input, and they really hear news about what's great or what can be approved about that destination so that we are in that consideration set to hold future meetings and events. And so that type of insight is really important and certainly part of our recovery that I would like to be able to implement. Second is reimagine the organization and what we need to do with that. So one of the things that I put on here and certainly was important was to meet with every single staff member one-on-one. And that's actually been completed. The second thing is to join and evaluate the in-market team on sales calls. I need to get out and visit with our folks who are in markets, who are calling on the folks to understand really what's happening and how we sell. Again, this is as COVID restrictions allow. Currently, from our folks that are in market, we have Texas and we have Georgia that are still open. And so talking with Mike and the team to be able to reach out to start visiting with those folks first, but want to get to every single one of our folks in market to be able to call on and get in front of our potential clients with them. Meet with the finance folks and get a detailed financial review, certainly on the calendar, and then adjust and hire the RSCVA folks as we need. As I finish evaluating, that's got to be done in the next short period of time here. And then the last thing is conduct a review of all the brand and marketing assets that we have so that we can make adjustments of what's going forward as well. Point number 3, improving air service. And really that's aligning with Darren Griffin, who I said is my new best friend, and we really need to align, as he so well outlined of everything going on there. Tourism and the airlift have to be, and the airport have to be aligned together. Darren mentioned, and we've met a few times for updates. I've already invited him, and it's great that he's here today. But we're going to conduct regular meetings, and we have now monthly meetings set up. I've told Darren anytime that I can join you in market to be able to call on the airlines to understand what it takes to get them to fly here, I said I'm all in, and we need to do that. Certainly, we need to be actively engaging support for new airlift so that we can bring back additional and new routes. Darren outlined that. And then the last thing is join him on a media tour. And so part of that is the goal. We're in the process of doing that. Our PR department's working with the airport PR department to reach out to the local media folks. We have no agenda, but he's no longer the new guy. I'm now the new guy with 2 months. He's now, I think, 5 months in. But we want to work together to do a tour of all the local folks so that we can talk about the mission of both the airport and the RSCVA together. And our good folks on the PR side have already lined up 3 meetings with some of our local media towards that end. And so we're working through that right now. The fourth piece is to evaluate the facilities. So we have 4 facilities, and one of the points that I put on here is to complete an ASM contract review and financial analysis. The second is provide go-forward analysis to the board. And then the third thing is to prioritize CapEx projects for our facilities. And so finding out what the priorities are and how we move forward to make improvements within those facilities. Number 5, economic impact and continued growth of the brand. Two points that I put on here by the end of this year is really establish new destination-based KPIs or key performance indicators. And point number 2 is to elevate our image and to be able to join a board or boards on a national level to represent the destination and really have our voice heard and be part of those discussions, like with folks with Roger Dow or Don Welsh and folks like that. And then the last thing is engage with our community stakeholders. Certainly put a number of 50 community stakeholders to meet with by the end of this fiscal. Meet and engage with our RSCVA legacy event leaders. That's also very important as they're a part of our community. And then explore new partnerships that are going to benefit the region, whether it's new businesses or new technology of things that will absolutely help us. With that, that is the 6 items that I put together, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Mayor?
All right, fantastic. Corey, can you bring us back to the regular screen? There you go. All right, perfect. Okay, any questions for Mr. Harris? Jump right in.
Yes, Mayor, this is Mark.
Go ahead.
Hey, Charles, good morning. Detailed and thorough presentation, really refreshing and great to see. This may not be a question for you, but slightly off topic. Historically, when we looked at compensation for a bonus, it was, I was told it was discretionary. And then we did the search for your position. We said there would be a defined measurable goals for that. So I guess my question is, how do we measure these priorities, or how do we set the goals, and when will that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I would answer is, again, part of the research that I put together is understanding what's been done in the past and forward. And what's kind of awkward is this is in the year for the year, right? So it's hard to do that for a new CEO coming in. What I basically did as a research is I went back to the previous CEO and figure out what did the board do as that person came in the year for the year. And really, there were not a whole lot of measurable goals that were in that initial contract. It was really starting that new fiscal year, which is what I would expect come July, that we look at for the next year. But there were really 4 areas in that initial one that came back in 2017 from the board. And it was visit remote sales folks, more effectively use the facilities, participate in a redesign. There wasn't a whole lot, Mark, to your point, but I would expect, not in this one, but in the next one, that we absolutely have some hard numbers and measurable goals. The one that I could put in is the number of folks that I'm going to be able to meet with in the community to be able to do that. But I'm open to any other types of input. I tried to align myself to what was done in the past with what can be measured and the impact during these first 7.5 months.
Charles, the one thing that I asked of our last CEO a few times, and it didn't come to fruition, but what I would like to see is honestly like some concrete goals of business that we are going to go after, like literally naming some of these, whether they're events or conventions or something to that matter. I felt like after we lost Interbike, there was no direction of what we were really going to go after. So all of us, if we don't have that, we're not going to have that map that we really need to identify. And I say, obviously, go after all the business that you possibly can, but I want some like really big concrete business whether it's, another Interbike or a technology forum or, right now esports is really big, blockchain is really big. There's a lot of really big industries that I think we should be identifying and saying, these are the top 5 that we want to get. Now, whether we get them or not, but I do think that we should be really have concrete business, that we say this is what we want to try to achieve. That's how really we did get Interbike. We flew down there. It was a whole team of us. Remember, Mike? we had a really good time, but at the same time, we worked really hard. And they even said to us, hey, we didn't even think you guys were going to be anywhere in the running. We were just being nice, felt sorry for you. So we brought you in. Remember that?
I do.
And the presentation went so well that, we made it happen, which was really amazing. And then, also the one to really, I would say who's an expert at this, hands down, is Rick Murdoch. He's always got that business to identify. So I would certainly meet with him, but I'd love to see that at some point where we're really identifying what that business is. So that's just my 2 cents.
Mayor, it's a great point. What I would say to you is, I absolutely want to get to that stage. I think we have to walk before we run. So that's part of the reason why I want to go in market. I want to visit with either people that are clients or prospective clients to find out what's it going to take to be able to do that. And then ultimately that customer advisory board helps us define where we fit in that niche so that we then can get to the stage of targeting very specific meetings and conventions we want to go after. And part of that is understanding, what does Lyft or airlines play into that? What does the convention center and structure for their needs? And so we will absolutely get there. That's part of the due diligence that I'm still going through so that we can then create a short list of very targeted folks we want to go after.
Okay. All right. Jump in, anyone.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay. Just to kind of piggyback off the discussion, and Mark, thanks for your question. I asked the same thing in pre-board about the measurable goals. And so I think that, just to kind of reinforce what Charles said, is that there will be measurable goals that will come to the board for the fiscal year, prior to July. And the good news about that is that we'll have time between now and then to be able to understand a little bit more what's happening with the pandemic. So I think it will be easier to create some of those measurable goals for the fiscal year, as opposed to trying to create them now. So I look forward to certainly seeing those measurable goals for the next fiscal year. So, but my question more in the interim between now until then, you have these other goals that are, a little bit more broad. But I am curious though, and it's not really necessarily for you to answer right now, but I would like to see some specific things, like you talked about strategic plan, right? So is the strategic plan going to fall in line with the fiscal year? And then, or is there a strategic plan for the interim, right? So from now until July, what specific things are we going to do from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective? What can we do while we're kind of in this limbo phase to make sure we're not like starting from ground zero come July?
Yeah, it's a great point. Excuse me, Shannon. And you're going to hear Mike talk about what's happening on the sales side. So it's not being ignored. And certainly in the March meeting, we will talk about what we're doing from today through June. It's just a matter of that last part. And again, we're going to turn the funnel on marketing as 1, people are ready, 2, the data shows us and it's starting to trend that way. And 3, COVID allows us to do that. And so certainly we will talk about that in the next meeting. Marketing folks will talk about the first 6 months, and Mike will talk about what is the proposed sales goals between now and the end of the year. So that's certainly going to be tackled here in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, Charles, I agree with everything Shannon just said, because that's important. But more importantly is it's now, here we are in January, and we know whatever the state of Nevada, I kind of feel like we and I mentioned it to you, I think in our phone call, we've really got to understand what the state of Nevada is going to open up or let us do, because we have things ready to go in February already if this thing improves. So I think what I'd like to see is I know you're going to go on the long term and do the goals and we'll have a definitive plan, but in the short term, we got to get some room tax in these buildings. So I guess where I'm asking to really take a hard look right away at the special event opportunities to bring people back. Also, we already know, and Mike's very aware of this, the university with Brian Sandoval up there should be an integral part of the RSCVA's game plan going forward. They want to participate. They've come down and met with all of us downtown Reno. They want to meet with the region. I think Brian's the perfect guy to help. There's a lot of business, and Mike's got I think you've got a open line to the university could help there. But I really think we've got to be ready to go here. If the governor relaxes in mid-February, I hope we've got some definitive plans to capture some business. And as a matter of fact, we're still going forward with the Lady Bowlers. I'd like to hear how they've already got 11,500 bowlers booked coming to Reno starting April 28th. So I want to make sure that we are ready for that, but also working on what are we doing after the bowlers. There's a lot of opportunity in the bowling stadium. We want to help out. So I'd really like to, I'm not trying to get in the weeds, but I'd like to really get an action plan and start attacking some opportunity for room tax.
Yeah,
because we all need it.
Great input. And what I would tell you first with the university, I have President Sandoval on the schedule to meet with, so I can connect with him, have met with the athletic department and the business department, and our sales folks actually have an agreement for new business to work with folks as we open up. Now, going back to what I said earlier, meetings and conventions for the first half of the year is really tough across the nation. It's not going to start opening up until the second half of the year. And what I've already talked to Mike is we've got to start pushing to see what we can capture in the year for the year in 21 and then and beyond. So certainly, Rick, to your point, the team's hustling and we will move forward with all those initiatives.
One more comment, and I think you all know this. The one thing that is itching to come back right away is sports in these facilities, and maybe even out at the softball parks. They want to get out and so it's critical that you guys are in touch with the state and the county to make sure we can open up when we can open up, because there will be an automatic floodgate opening up to Reno, Nevada, and Tahoe, I'm sure Tahoe, for opportunity for room nights. So I think that's really going to happen fast if we can get to that point where we know what we can and cannot do.
Madam Mayor.
Go right ahead.
If I could just make a comment, and maybe this is the elephant in the room, but Charles, I'm assuming, given what you said about a bonus being discretionary, that you wouldn't be terribly disappointed if there wasn't one in this fiscal year.
I think that's up to the board to decide what that looks like.
Okay, but what I guess I'm asking is, you're not necessarily advocating that we look closely at one for your first 6 or 7 months in the job.
I think that all depends upon where we are financially of what's there, and that applies for the whole staff. And so I think that that really depends upon where we net out at the end of the year right now.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? The only thing, go ahead, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So one thing I just wanted to point out or to discuss, and I know it's kind of on the minds, at least in the Tahoe region, we've been on hold on our marketing really since March. I mean, we were ready to re-engage in the summertime and felt that we didn't need to do that, obviously, because we were just inundated with travel, both second homeowners returning, day visits, and then overnight. But now with the stay-at-home orders being lifted in California, that's creating, obviously, the need to start rethinking of how we point that fire hose of marketing. And I'm assuming that Jennifer and her team is thinking of that same thing right now. So I would be interested, as Rick talked about, what are those short-term elements really between now and September? Now that I know rolls over the fiscal year, but it gets us kind of through that summer period of time where we need to be smart about re-engaging The marketing dollars, I think at our last meeting, we looked at a new financial reforecast, and obviously revenues are up from the budget. They are still, considerably down from prior year, which we know, but that's the intent. I think now that the stigma of marketing into a region that's in a stay-at-home order is gone, at least from a California perspective, I think it's important to really start looking how we're re-engaging those. As an example, we did, and again, our California partner on the North Shore was hesitant to do any marketing while they were in a stay-at-home order. We worked with Carol Chaplin on the South Shore and are implementing a program in Dallas right now with Travel Nevada funds, some of their CARES funds that we got in support of that flight. So we're definitely marketing the winter season in Dallas through the end of March right now, and then they're looking at how we extend that. But I know Jennifer and your team, you guys are looking at that, but getting a little bit more visibility into some of that would be appreciated.
Great.
Here.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Bill Hanbury. Nice to see everybody. Good to see you, Mayor. And I know I haven't seen some of you since the search was over, but I continue to provide some counsel to Charles, what little he may need. But I'm glad to be part of the group. And I want to just reinforce a couple of things that were said, and it was said by the mayor, said by Roger and others, that you guys are really in a very powerful position, in my opinion, to recover. With the outdoor focus, drive markets, affordability, I think all kind of play into where the destination is connected. And I think that's just a really good thing for you guys. And also the fact that you have resources. So many CVBs around the country are walking wounded, as I would like to say these days. They just have no resources, very limited staff. Staff has been dramatically cut in some of the big DMOs. From Orlando, where they're running 25% occupancy last week, to Chicago that ran 12% occupancy last week. Reno's in and Sparks is in just a much better situation. So I would suggest to you that you're on the right track and making good progress. I know I'm going to be working with Charles over the next couple of months on strategy and looking at best practices around the country to see how we can deploy some of those best practices with Charles and the team. And I'm glad to still be engaged and involved. And I'll look forward at some point, hopefully, to seeing folks actually in person out in your great destination.
All right, anyone else? All right, moving right along. Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I could just interject, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understands what we're being asked to approve today, because I've heard some comments. Per Charles' contract, he was required to bring these interim goals back to the board at this meeting for his stub period. So this fiscal 2021, 7 months out of this year. Whatever gets approved today as Charles' interim goals, typically the process would be at the end of the fiscal year, we'll come back, Charles will put them back up on the screen and say, here's what I've done to achieve these goals that you've approved. And then per his contract, the board in its reasonable discretion can award up to a 35% bonus. So I just want to make clear that if there are changes to what Charles has proposed or presented today, that as part of the motion approving these goals, that we're just clear. And that we know exactly what is being asked. If the goals are being modified, we're clear what we're modifying. And then at the end of this fiscal year, when it gets revisited, the board can decide what it wants to do on the bonus.
Okay. Sounds good. The one recommendation that I would make, Charles, do any of you sit on the EDON board? I don't know if you do, but they have a really good way of measuring, we all want to see how we're measuring that and the progress. I would reach out to them because they sort of have these graphs and they bring it back to every board meeting, which can be really helpful for all of us to stay on track and see how we're faring. And it's a really good graph and it's sort of colored and it's very easy to follow, but reach out to EDON because that might also help you sort of define when we're looking at those goals and what that looks like whenever you're trying to measure it. So that could be really helpful. Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Mayor Shivy, I just wanted to comment. I just finished my 5 years on the EDON board to come over to this board. And I would agree with the mayor, the dashboard that is very, very detailed and is color coded. So it makes it a little bit easier to wade through tons of numbers, tons of data, but it's very helpful because it's quick. Once you get used to looking at it, it really is helpful to the board because we can really see targeted areas where we're on track, where we're not on track, broken down to all the different segments of EDON itself and goals and objectives for every department within EDON. So I think reaching out to Mike to take a look at that would be a good way to give us measurable outcomes and progress as we move along. So I would agree with the mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
So are we not then approving the goals that are outlined in the current state? Or because it sounds like all of us kind of said the same thing, which was, hey, like from now until the new fiscal year, we kind of want something a little bit more concrete, but we also understand why it is a little bit more vague. None of us really want to wait till July to we want those results now. But I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is, are we saying we're okay with the way he's laid out his goals, or do we want him to come back with new stub goals? Or
I would recommend if the board thinks this is okay, that we approve the presentation that he gave today, and at the next board meeting, bring back some more definable goals. And I think too, it's an opportunity for board members to also get with Charles if there's certain ones precisely you want to see, so he has some direction. And I would say bring it back to the next board meeting, but approve the presentation that he gave. How is that? Are we good with that, Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're saying is we're approving the goals as presented, and then you want them further refined at the next meeting. And I guess the only thing I throw out there for consideration is with our bi-monthly meeting schedule, our next scheduled meeting will be March, and then you've only got a couple months left in the fiscal year to achieve those goals. But that, being what it is, I think leaving here today, Charles can understand that you've approved this, and that you're going to put some objectivity to them at the next meeting. And we can always, you can always have a special meeting in between if you decide to approve this.
Okay, and Ben, another question. What have we typically, because you mentioned a 35% bonus, possible bonus. What's typically the percentage of bonus that we do give? What is that based on? How do we measure, identify that?
Right, so the 35% is, that's what's in his contract, that's what was negotiated. I believe that was consistent with Mr. DeLone. Mr. DeLone's stub period goals, they agreed that there was going to be no stub period bonus. But typically, the full fiscal year bonus, you can create, and we've done this in the past, I believe, and Mr. Izak can jump in if I'm misstating. We've identified a certain number of goals. He's got 5, 6, 7 goals and assigned a percentage to each of those goals. And then it becomes a little bit more objective. So, if there's a room night goal and you've achieved the room night goal, then you get that particular percentage. And then you look at the next goal and what percentage has been assigned to that. I mean, when we're putting the goals together for the full fiscal year, the board's got a lot of flexibility. And if you want to really make objective goals and you want to assign strict percentages to each goal, you want to weight them differently, that's all in your discretion and part of that process.
Okay, I don't remember that with Mr. DeLone, but I remember the board approved about $100,000 in a bonus.
That's right. And under his contract, my recollection is that it was 40%. He was eligible for up to 40% of his salary. So with this contract, it went a little bit down. And Ben, Mr. Kennedy is exactly right that for the first 6 months of Mr. DeLone's work with the RSCVA, he did not receive a bonus on that stub period. And then he went into goals for the full fiscal year. After that full fiscal year, the board looked at both and determined how he did and awarded a bonus based on that. I will say that the most important part through this whole entire goal process is setting those goals. So particularly for those full fiscal year, that is when they tend to be much more objective in nature, because you're looking at room nights, you're looking at visitation numbers, all of those things that you have data on for an entire fiscal year. And so right now, and even with Mr. DeLone's first 6-month goals, it was really about getting that new CEO, allowing them to get their feet under them, learn the area, learn the agency, and move forward. So in a full fiscal year, they can succeed on those goals.
Okay, so just to be clear, what I heard you say, Molly, is really his goals were a full year. I mean, his bonus was for a full year.
So exactly. Well, that is correct. After the first 6 months under his contract, there wasn't eligibility for any sort of bonus, and the board did not award any sort of bonus after that 6-month period. He started, I believe, January 1. And then you set goals for that next full fiscal year, and he was awarded a bonus after that full fiscal year.
Okay, I got it. So I guess I would just leave that up to Charles when the time comes. If you want to come to the board, you're more than welcome to. Okay. Any other questions? And we're going to get moving right along here. We still have a few presentations, and I have to be out of here in 45 minutes.
Excuse me. Do you need a motion for us to approve the goals as presented? I'm willing to make that motion. I think they're a good baseline for us to start from with in March as the discussion that we move with maybe some more specific, but I think it's a good baseline. So I move to approve the goals and objectives for fiscal year 2020-2021 by the CEO as presented.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to add to that it will be brought back to our next meeting for more definable goals.
Okay, I'm good with that motion.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Good job. Okay, here we go. I guess, Mr. Harris, I see you are going to lead us in the next couple of agenda items. Take it away.
All righty. So at this point, I want to turn it over to our sales team and Mike Larraguetta, who's going to go through F1 and F2 for a sales division update and goals on the room nights. So Mike, why don't you join us and take over the presentation with your slides.
Great. Thank you, Charles. I had a little internet connection there, so hopefully I'm here. Before I jump in, I just want to say, Madam Mayor, your comments are noted as it relates to focusing on specific segments and groups. And of course, we are striving for that all the time. And I can also assure you, in terms of your reference to the expert, Mr. Murdoch, he has me on speed dial with his ideas and concepts all the time. So Rick and I are always in touch. That being said, I'll jump in here. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Mike Larraguetta, Vice President of Sales. Today, I'm going to provide an update on the convention sales production, cancellations, net numbers for November, December, and of course, year to date. We're also going to take a look at the future in terms of the groups that we booked this fiscal year, what years they are scheduled to meet at in the future. We're going to look at new business results, group retention update, and also talk about some of our key successes over the last 6 months. For the tourism segment, I'm going to update production numbers versus same time last year as it relates to November and year to date. We'll be looking at production comparison of an OTA comp set for July through December, highlights of an Expedia campaign we recently completed, year-to-date partnership marketing contributions, search data results, and also look at some of the anticipated sales missions for 2021. Jumping right in here, let's look at the convention gross produced room nights for the month of November. That number came to 21,052 against a goal of 14,475. Cancellations for the month of November were 20,202, which resulted in a net number of 850 room nights. The convention gross produced room nights for the month of December was 6,527 against a goal of 13,285. Cancellations for December were 7,392, resulting in a net result of a negative 865 room nights. In terms of year-to-date, the total room nights July through December that were contracted was 64,452 against a goal of 121,091. Cancellations directly related to COVID through this first 6-month period were 56,120, ending in a net result for the first 6 months of the year of 8,332. In terms of the groups that we booked this fiscal year and where they have been placed in terms of future years for consumption, of the 64,452, 19% or 12,130 were booked to consume in the year 2020, 37% or 23,872 in 2021, and 21% or 13,610 in the year 2024. In regards to new business, which is defined as having never met in the destination or have not returned in the last 4 years, the room night total was 29,064, or 45% of all room nights contracted year to date, and 76% against the goal of 38,191. For the period of July through December 2020, we had 106 groups representing 160,000 plus room nights cancel directly due to COVID-19. However, 90% or 95 of these 106 groups have either re-signed contracts or in discussion with hotels to re-sign for a future date. We reached out to a few of our groups asking them why they chose to rebook their programs in Reno, and a few examples of what they had to say. Don Pettis, who is the Vice President of Events for the National Tour Association, stated, NTA was extremely disappointed that we could not hold our 2020 travel exchange in Reno Tahoe as planned. But there was never a question in our mind about rescheduling for our next open year, 2022. Reno is a great city, and I look forward to sharing it with our attendees. However, your best asset is your people, and they made the process of rebooking painless. The only bright side to moving dates is that I can continue to work with them for just a bit longer. Elizabeth Armstrong, who is the president of the Association of Society Management International, who represents numerous clients, had to say, Reno has been one of the top destinations due to our value, attractions, and most importantly, the relationships and sense of partnerships between us as event planners and the Reno family, represented by the facility and the RSCVA reps. So let's turn to some of our successes that we've had the last 6 months. 16 groups of 1,000 or more room nights were contracted, highlighted by the 2022 CookieCon Art Convention, representing over 2,000 room nights with an economic impact over $2 million. The 2021 USA Climbing with over 5,000 room nights and an economic impact of over $5.1 million. And finally, a citywide Shriners International Imperial Session booked for July of 2024, representing over 11,000 room nights with an economic impact of $10.8 million. This concludes my update on the convention side. Are there any questions I can answer before I jump over to tourism?
I don't think so. Go ahead.
Okay.
One quick one, if I can.
Yes, sir.
I think on your second slide, you were showing the groups that were booked and what year they were booked. And 2021 had the largest piece. Was most of that just the postponed events moving a year forward?
Yeah, so it's a combination of groups that were booked that obviously chose dates in the nearest date possible to consume in 2021, but there are some new business in there as well.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, jumping over to tourism. For the month of November, tourism sales consumed room nights totaled 31,031 versus 51,962 for November of 2019. Percentage decreases were consistent across all leisure segments for the month of November. Year to date, consumed room nights, which is obviously July through December, totaled 202,447 versus last year at 330,116. Online travel agencies, or OTAs as we call them, and travel agent segments represented 96% of all tourism produced room nights year to date in 2020 and 90% in 2019. So how are we performing as a destination versus a sample of our comp set? The data on this slide represents year-over-year production for one of our major OTA partners from July through December of 2020 versus 2019. Reno Tahoe is down 32% year over year. However, when you look at our comp set, we performed much better than 7 of the 8 metropolitan recreational cities represented on this slide, especially Las Vegas and San Francisco, who are down 59 and 87% year over year. Expedia, the RSCVA, and 5 of our partner properties recently participated and completed a cooperative marketing campaign that ran from July through November 5th of 2020. Total investment by the RSCVA and participating properties was $93,000. Matching funds from Expedia was $112,000, resulting in a total campaign value of north of $205,000. This campaign generated over 42,000 room nights and $4.6 million in room revenue for future travel. Year to date, the tourism team has completed multiple cooperative partnership marketing campaigns with key partners. Total investment by the RSCVA and hotel partners is north of $115,000. In addition to the contribution from our partners of $153,000, for a total investment of over $268,000. These combined efforts and these campaigns generated over 80,000 room nights for a room revenue number of $7.4 million for future travel. Search on travel for one of our largest OTA partners, Expedia's websites, was up over 24% during the pandemic for our market. The primary booking window continues to be within that 0 to 21 day period. However, we do see, based on the slide demonstrated here, the travelers are searching days up to 90 days out. Looking forward to the rest of 2021, the tourism team is looking on these key air markets and feeder markets to schedule sales missions as we continue through the calendar year. That wraps up the tourism presentation. Any questions on tourism before I continue on to the next agenda item? Okay. I always say it's good not to get questions. Madam Mayor, if okay with you, I'd like to proceed to F2 and the next agenda item.
Please do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, fiscal year 2020-2021 group sales, room night goals, and gross versus net. Again, for the record, Mike Larragetta, VP of Sales. In fiscal year 2019-2020, the group room night goal was 290,000. For fiscal year 2020-2021, I am proposing a group room night goal of 176,500 contracted room nights, or 61% of the prior fiscal year room night goal for the board's review and approval. There are several factors that contributed to this recommended room night goal. The department's annual budget for the fiscal year is 46% to prior year, and our FTE count is 65% to prior year. Also, the inability to meet with clients in person at trade shows, sponsor events, conduct site inspections and familiarization trips. History has proven that when we are successful in getting a prospective client to Reno Tahoe to experience our product, hospitality, and the simplicity of contracting business, we win more than we lose. The second part of this agenda item is to request the board's review and approval for group cancellations in fiscal year 2021 directly related to COVID-19 to not be applied against the gross room night booked in the fiscal year. As previously mentioned, through the first 6 months of the fiscal year, 64,452 group room nights have been contracted for future dates, which puts us at a 53% pace to goal through the first 6 months. When you factor in the COVID-related cancellations of 56,120 for the same period, the net produced room nights is 8,332, or 6.9% to goal through the first 6 months. Should a group be contracted, then canceled and rebooked all in the same year, the team would only get credit for the one booking. The board's approval to be gold on gross versus net will continue to drive the team for the remainder time of this fiscal year to achieve the annual room night goal. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I just need to understand this better. So if you take a look at like total room nights we're talking about production and not actualization, right? Obviously in the sales world. Okay. So
That's correct.
you have room nights that were and revenue that was canceled. And then you have rebookings, right? So it doesn't matter when those room nights and that revenue will ultimately be actualized. It only matters what actually got put on the books for that fiscal year, right? Or no?
It does, but the way we are structured is that if groups were booked in the past by whether it was us or prior salespeople, people that may not be here anymore, whatever it may be, and they actually canceled within the fiscal year that we are goaled against, we would take the hit normally for those cancellations, regardless of whether we booked it or not.
Okay. I guess the way that the way that my mind looks at it is, here's what your goal originally was for 2021 fiscal year. Let's say it was 100,000. Here was your goal to produce 100,000 nights for future, right? Now, if you had cancellations happen during that time, I'm obviously, because of COVID, there's a lot of them. I'm more concerned about what is the sales team, what is their output for getting production booked, like that number, not necessarily penalizing them for the cancellations. I'm more concerned about them booking to that goal.
Correct. And hence the reason why I'm presenting it to the board for review. It's just that hasn't been the way of doing business in the past. Normally, the number of cancellations that we experience within a fiscal year are nominal. Interbike was an anomaly because it was a multi-year contract, but generally our cancellations where we are involved in the sourcing and the booking and the validation of an agreement are nominal. So COVID was obviously a tremendous anomaly, and we're experiencing a lot of cancellations on programs that were booked prior to this fiscal year even starting.
Mm-hmm. And so what was that percentage again from goal to actual? Was it was 60%, 40%? I can't remember.
Yeah, 61%. So in addition to some of the reasons that I mentioned as to why I was presenting that goal and the percentage 61% versus prior year, is that I also reached out to obviously a lot of the major stakeholders that are our partners and trying to get a gauge of what they were looking at on the calendar year. Now, our production runway is much smaller, right? We only have 5 months left in the fiscal year to try and hit that goal number, whereas our hotel partners majority work on a calendar year, so there's 11 months left of that production runway. But I found it interesting that from the feedback I received from almost every major convention hotel in the county was that the average of those 7 hotels for their 2021 goal versus 2020 was about a 45% reduction in production.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mike, I have a question. Have you done?
Yes, sir. Mr. Servants, yes, sir.
If I remember correctly, I thought we talked about this back in December, and it was approved based on Charles reviewing and agreeing. So I'm assuming this being on the agenda this way, that Charles, you're supporting this suggestion, and that's you've reviewed and recommendation.
I have reviewed it with them, and I've also talked to other destinations because we're managing this in the COVID period, which is just so unusual. And I think it's still a stretch to get to that number that they're trying to get to.
Thank you.
This is a stretch goal based on your research, Mike, or are you suggesting it's achievable?
I wish I had that crystal ball, right, Ms. Silver? It's a challenge because Charles and I sat down and we really had a deep dive into the conversation and he asked me, Mike, if everything goes well, based on everything that is in the pipeline and the percentage of leads you're seeing versus prior years, what's the number you think we can achieve? And my number was between 155 and 160 if everything goes right. So I guess it's a little bit of a stretch, but salespeople need to be pushed. We all need to be pushed. We need to try and find new business. Just like Madam Mayor mentioned earlier, we are looking for those opportunities. We are looking for opportunities that may fall into our lap per se because of challenges within other states that aren't at a case number that we are, and we may open quicker. There's a lot of variables that can go into that, but unfortunately, again, like all of us, especially in the hotel world, that crystal ball, we just don't know what it's going to tell us in the next 5 months.
Just one more follow-up question, because I'm not in the room booking business. Understanding what we heard from Darren and Roger Dow, is your biggest impediment the state capacity guidelines or the governor's mandate? All things being equal, people's love of travel and anxiousness to get back on planes and such, is it that it could restrict you?
For the group segment, it is, but more specifically for the sports segment within the overall group segment. I mean, we have, the sports team we are fielding calls and making calls with clients that want to come to Reno tomorrow. They want to hold their group events. We're working on 2 or 3 significant programs. One of the programs that I mentioned in our success is the USA Climbing. That's this July, right? So we're counting on those 5,100 room nights materializing. But to answer your question, sports, absolutely. That is a huge hurdle in terms of the group gathering size. In terms of the association, the corporate, the Smurf segment, that is more of a perception of they want to know we're open so that we can pursue opportunities to look at Reno in the near future. It's more getting over the sense of, they're just not ready. They're not ready because they're so restricted. If we were out there and our number was 250 or 1,000, those conversations would be much easier to have as we're soliciting their business.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Mike, I have a question on the cancellations so that I'm clear. I'm a little bit unclear. If the groups that had to cancel due to COVID this last summer and fall, if they rebook, whether it's in this fiscal year or in the future, are you not penalized? But if they don't rebook, is there a penalty? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. So and I mentioned that in my comments, and I know it's a little hard to follow sometimes, and Mr. Servins actually brought this up in a prior board meeting, is that, to ensure that if a group booked, canceled, and rebooked all within that same fiscal year, the team would only get credit for the one booking. It's not a double dipping situation. We ensure that if that were to happen, and again, that's all based on how long the COVID is in play and how the restrictions play out, but we would only get credit for the one booking if it was to book, cancel, and rebook. If that hope I answered your question. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
I have one, Mayor Sheevy.
Rick, go ahead.
Hey, Michael, are you comfortable with if they do lift our capacity in our events, in our buildings and so forth? You guys, I know you mentioned I think you're trying to maximize any building you can in Reno to do these sporting events, because like you said, they are going to come back. You're working, I know you're working with Lawler as well, because we need it all in all these facilities to drive, volume, because you only can be at 50% maybe in the next go round. But it's important that you guys we really, as share stakeholders in the city, whether it's with the NRA, the RSCVA, we get our lobbyists to make sure we are, with the governor's office, what we can get and what we need to do to get open. So I'm really
So the answer to the first part of your comment, Mr. Murdoch, is yes, absolutely. And as you know, and I think some of our other hotel members know, the sports team specifically, we had created a plan, call it a bubble per se, where we were aggressively pursuing universities in the state of California because of their status of making Reno their home. Several universities that have done that. If you follow collegiate sports in pretty much any capacity, you would know that a lot of schools have relocated to other states and other cities and made that their residence for the duration of the city, whether it was University of New Mexico, San Jose State per se. And we approached that. The direction we received back from the state was to really the only green light was with the Mountain West Conference, because that's obviously the conference the University of Nevada participates in. But we are pushing that envelope. And in terms of bookings and the opportunities in the near future, we're really looking at what is scheduled to happen in Las Vegas the first couple weeks of March. Again, if you follow sports and you know sports, Las Vegas is the home to now 5 major Division I men's and women's collegiate basketball tournaments: the WCC, the WAC, the Mountain West, the Pac-12, and now the Big West. They are using both private and public entities to host those events. So we have gone to the state, and we're working on a piece of business right now for the 3rd week of March, and kind of leveraging that position to where if Vegas gets the green light, certainly Reno and Washoe County should get the green light as well. So to your point, we are looking at opportunities as early as February, March. As soon as we can get the thumbs up, we are moving full steam ahead to book any business we can.
What's good for Vegas is good for Reno. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let's make sure we get, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Corey, will you let me know exactly which item you have us on?
Yes, I believe Mr. Harris was going to take us into our marketing division, item G.
Okay. Do we, so this, let me just ask you this. I believe we have to take action on Mr. Larraguetta's group sales room night goals.
Correct.
So I'm trying to figure out what's the best. So I would just say a motion to approve his goals and presentation.
Move that motion to approve the sales goals for the remainder of the 2021 fiscal year.
I'll second.
Yeah. And I know it's a little difficult only because we're in such uncharted territory. So I think as we move along, we'll all be able to identify things that we want to see or specific goals in that nature. So I think that's a good motion. Thanks, Andy. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You made it, Mike. Good job.
Thank you. Now we got to go to work.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good presentation. Very, very nice. Okay, good. I'm actually going to ask Madam Clerk if we could skip actually to item H1 since I've got to get on a presser here pretty quick. And this is, and the reason can we just move item G down to the bottom of the agenda because we do not need to take any action on that item. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to move us around a little bit. So just everyone take a quick note there. Okay. All right. So Madam Clerk, we're now going to go into item H, Finance Division, review, discussion, and possible approval of payment into the amount of up to $150,000 to the City of Reno for funding the Downtown Business Improvement District. And we probably do have the ever so wonderful Alex Statinsky from the bid. I don't know if he's on here, but he's probably chimed in now. No, he's not. Okay, that's all right. Well, if we have any questions for Alex, we could bring him back later. But with that being said, Corey, do you have any public comment on this item?
No public comment on this item.
Okay, Charles, do you want to weigh in on this?
I wanted to defer. I think Robert, were you going to talk about this a little bit of the history and where we were at, and then I can really add to that.
Yeah, this is Robert. I'll be real quick. Back in 2018, the board of directors met on the request from the City of Reno to do annual funding of the BID of $100,000 per year. The board approved a one-year commitment and asked that we bring back each yearly payment to the board. Payment of $100,000 was made in for fiscal year 2018-19. A payment for fiscal year 19-20 was actually split into 2 payments. One of $50,000 was made in 19-20. The second $50,000 has not been paid. In addition, there is the $100,000 payment for fiscal year 2021. Hence, that is why the request is for the $150,000, which is for the second request of the $50,000 from fiscal year 19-20 and the $100,000 for this fiscal year 2021. The $150,000 were budgeted in this year's budget. We have the funds available and would look for the board to approve the payment.
And then, Mayor, you asked me just to weigh in. I did talk to Alex, and as I understood it in talking with with Robert that we had that 3-year commitment, wanting to make sure that we fulfilled that within the 3 years as our budgets allow us to do so. And I did talk to Alex ahead of time, and really, he said that the money helps fill a shortfall in the BID's budget for the additional police as part of their efforts downtown. So I thought it was the right thing to do. It's for the community, and that's why we put that on the agenda.
Yeah, really appreciate that. And again, I think to Charles' point, he was sort of reiterating what Alex had sort of stressed, is that budget shortfall for the police department. And I know I sound like a broken record, but the bid is so critical. People only want to visit, safe cities. So if we don't have a safe city, it's hard to bring tourism here. And matter of fact, I think a lot of cities will probably struggle with that in this next year because we've had so much unrest in other cities. Reno's been pretty fortunate, but I think now more than ever, police budgets are important. And they've, the funny thing is Roger also talked about that on that panel about how important, even reaching out to your police departments now to talk about plans on what that looks like in the future. Really, tourism has never really worked with police departments and public safety. And now they're saying that that's really important to find out what those action plans are if anything should happen in cities. It's just unfortunate, but we're living in sort of a different landscape as we've all seen this last year. So thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Okay, with that being said, any comments?
Can I just get clarification? Are we we're asking to approve monies through June and then also the new fiscal year and the new budget, or only for monies for the remainder of this fiscal year because we didn't approve it all before?
This is Robert. It was the 50,000 was for last fiscal year. Remember, our fiscal years is July to June,
right?
And 100,000 is for this fiscal year. So that would be paid up through June 30th of 2021 this year.
Okay, so we already gave the 50.
Correct.
And you're asking for us to approve the other 100.
We're asking to approve the second part of the 50,000. Last year, during the whole pandemic, we had cut our budget. And so the city and the BID agreed to take it in a smaller lump of just 50,000. So we're paying the second 50,000 plus 100,000 for this year.
Oh, okay. So you're asking us to approve 150?
Correct, 150.
Through June.
Correct. It's 50 for last year that we did not pay,
yeah,
and 100 for this year that we had made a commitment for. So that'll be a total of 300,000 we have given the bid since 2018.
And Shannon, that's not more. That's just what the agreement that we basically said that we would do to fulfill that.
It's the same amount, but it's now going to be given to be used in a shorter time frame because we didn't give it before. But it's 100% of what the original budget was.
Correct.
May I ask a question?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Shannon. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say that I absolutely feel that we need to be supportive of this endeavor and these monies. I know that they certainly could use it right now. I'm a little hesitant to do 100% of what the original budget was, just because all budgets are being cut and we're not really spending to full budgets pre-COVID to begin with. So that's what's giving me a little pause right now.
I would just like to clarify, is this money for additional ambassadors or for more police, or just to maintain the Alex's budget? I just don't know what the money is for.
My understanding is it is to maintain their current budget requirements. That's why they originally came to us, to help offset the operating costs back 3 years ago. I'd like to point out, we do have over $10 million in the bank right now, knock on wood. We have over 4 months of operating available for us as far as an agency. We took our actions quick and early, so we are actually in fairly good economic condition. Not saying we're not frivolous. We're very solid grounds. And this money was budgeted as part of the budget for this fiscal year. It was part of the original budget, and it is available to be spent. It's up to the board to make that decision.
Thank you for clarifying that. Go ahead.
Sorry to jump in. Because I asked Alex specifically, and he put in writing to me that the commitment was to help fill the gap for the downtown police funding that was created when the Downtown Reno Improvement District was formed. That's specifically what he had called out.
Yeah, and super essential for tourism to return. And remember, a lot of that is to help with the homeless population, because now more than ever, since we haven't been able to move them per the health district around, you know, it's sort of exacerbated the situation downtown as well. So, you know, it's been a pretty challenging landscape for everyone. So
could we give partial and then, you know, wait a few months and then to make sure that things are stable and everything's opening up like we thought, and then approve the rest? Does it have to be the whole 150 right now?
Well, I would say it does, because 50,000, I believe, is for last year and 100,000 would be for this year. So, and also I'm comfortable with Robert's comments, and sounds like we're on pretty stable ground financially. So anyway, someone want to give me a motion? Charlene.
Madam Mayor, actually not a motion yet, but just a comment and a clarification. From what I understand and looking at the original agreement, it was a 3-year agreement, but only a 1 year for $100,000 the first year, and the next 2 years would come before the board for that approval for the next 2 $100,000 increments. So the 100,000 commitment with a possible 3-year was what it looked like the original agreement was, and it's only 3 years. So we would be completed if we made this payment of the initial agreement that was really only for 100,000 with a possible 200,000 more. Is that correct? Mr. Chisholm?
Yeah, that is correct. The original agreement request was for 3 years of 100,000 each. Our board at the time approved the first 100,000 and directed staff to say to us to come back each year to renew the 100,000. And we did last year, but due to the pandemic, we reduced that amount. The board reduced it to only 50,000, and the second 50,000 to come later. And this year, the 100,000 we're asking for the 50,000 from last year and 100,000 from this year for the board to either approve or provide other direction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's still at board discretion whether we would have felt able to do the full retroactive and this year's. Is still at board discretion, correct?
Yes, it is the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, well then I will make the motion. I'm not hearing anyone throw out motions, so I'm going to make the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, good job. Okay, moving on. Madam Clerk. Okay. This is item I1. Merit bonus for interim president CEO. This would be under Jennifer. I apologize. I think I might have made the mistake here, Charles, because it looks like it's in the amount of $15,000. I had assumed 15%. So I'm not so sure if we can take any action on this today, but I think we should have discussion on this item. I think that would be good to kind of get a little bit familiar with sort of the bonus of when Jennifer served as interim. I wasn't aware that typically it looks like it's up to 35%. I think that's what Ben had alluded to. So I would like to be able to look at a way that we can compensate Ms. Cunningham on the job that she did while she was interim president and CEO.
Confused,
Go ahead,
Madam
Ben.
Mayor. Go ahead, Ben.
So Madam Mayor, maybe I can give the board some clarification on what has happened in the past and this agenda item. So this recent time was the second time Ms. Cunningham has served as interim CEO. The time prior, at the conclusion of her service, the board awarded her a bonus in the amount of $60,000. That $60,000 had two components. One component was $45,000 to make her pay equivalent to the individual that had served as interim CEO prior. So 2 times ago, Jennifer's base salary was less than the individual that had served previously. So the board rectified that with a $45,000 bonus at the end of her service. On top of that $45,000 bonus, the board gave her a $15,000 bonus based on merit and in recognition of the job that she had done as interim. So now that brings us to present day. There wasn't the same wage disparity there was last time. So the way this has been agendized is to give you the ability to award Jennifer that same bonus that she got previously based on merit, which was the $15,000. And if the board wants to exceed $15,000 or wants to calculate it differently, we can always bring it back for future consideration. But today you're agendized to consider a bonus up to $15,000.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, Ann,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Madam Mayor. I just have a question. I don't know if this can be answered. And I hate bringing this up in public meetings because I consider compensation a very private matter. But what increase was Ms. Cunningham given to assume the interim role? Because if I understand, we gave her an increase to assume the interim role, and now you're asking, or the question is, do we bonus her on top of the increase she got to serve as interim?
So I don't have the exact amount of the increase available. Jennifer, maybe you can speak to that. And yes, that's what we're asking. So when Jennifer served as interim this most recent time, she did receive a salary increase and then was subject to the mandatory reduction. And then this bonus would be on top of that increase.
And what is the bonus based on? I mean, I don't understand. It's just a discretionary bonus for having served as the interim?
Correct.
On top of the increase for serving as the interim?
There's a staff report in your packet to refer to.
Yeah, I have that. I just don't understand the logic. That's all. I'm just trying to understand the concept.
Does the increase stay?
I don't
know. And Mr. Chisholm, correct me if I'm wrong, when we hired Mr. Harris, Ms. Cunningham's salary went back to what it was prior to the interim position, or Jennifer, you can weigh in too.
This is Robert Chisholm, correct. The salary was just temporary as there was no other CEO. Once Charles Harris came on board, her salary was adjusted back down.
Okay. And was the other, I'm trying to think the last, I guess that would be Joe Kelly. Did he get a bonus? And I guess, I guess sort of what we're asking here, and refresh my memory, Jennifer, how long were you in that position?
In 2015, 16, it was, I think, 11 months.
Okay.
This year?
And this last time?
This last time it was May through when Charles started, end of November, I think.
Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure that, we are, keeping quality in line if Kelly received one, or what that looks like. That's one of the reasons why I think it's important for the board to weigh in and to kind of figure this out. And I would say we should go back to the finance committee and sort of put in some of these policy procedures, so we have guidelines that we can follow moving forward, because I think this is where all of us are unsure of what that looks like when someone does serve as interim CEO. I would say this, though, I do have to say, and you guys know that I feel this way, Jennifer had to both times clean up some pretty big situations. And she also had to do the hardest work, I think, in both times to let employees go, which was extremely hard. Then on top of that, there was that 15% pay cut, I think. But also local governments now are really paying attention to pay inequality. And I want to make sure that we're also doing that here. U.S. Conference of Mayors is doing a major study on this so that city halls can be right in line with sort of those pay inadequacies that you typically do see. So I would like some feedback from the board and figure out how do we get there.
Madam Chair.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Andy.
So just a thought. So if I'm understanding this right, and let me know if I got this information incorrect. The last time, Jennifer, that you were in this position, it was for 11 months. This time it was a $15,000 bonus on top of the pay bump, which I'll set that aside and just focus on the 15K. This month, or this time around, it was for 7 months. And that 7 months, we are still, for the most part, within the fiscal year of the bulk of that 7 months, because it was made in November, fiscal year is July right now. So what my suggestion might be is and certainly a recognition of the work that you did through that period of time is important and recognized, and certainly it is by myself, and I'm sure many members of this board. What I'm thinking is, since we're talking about a bonus for within the structure of the fiscal year, should this be addressed at the end of the fiscal year when we're talking about the overall organizations and everybody involved in that? Again, recognizing that unique 7-month period of time, and then recognizing the rest of the work that you have done during this period, during that fiscal year as a whole, but doing it all at a single time, as opposed to doing what is about 7 months, 5 months in this fiscal year, 7 months total, but do it all in at the end of the June 30 date. So just a thought, and I welcome other comments that the board members may have.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say, this is one thing to consider, is maybe not looking at that comparison of 5 years ago, just due to inflation. And then I think you have to remember, and I don't remember this, but I believe that Jennifer did 2 jobs at the time, her job and the CEO position. I don't think we put anyone in there to take on Jennifer's job. So just some other points of reference. But I think to Andy's point, trying to kind of figure out where we're going, this really needs to kind of be a policy and something that we can follow. I know that Ben and I have talked about sort of revamping a lot of these policies so we can have guidelines, because we're sort of all over the place. And that is very, very difficult whenever you want to have these conversations and everyone is sort of not sure where this falls or what the guidelines are. I think Andy made some points with that. Go ahead, Ben, go right ahead.
And just to address Mr. Chapman's point, so the reason that this is brought up now as a separate agenda item is this really involves the time that Jennifer reported directly to the board prior to Mr. Harris being here. So he doesn't really have a way to weigh her performance and decide whether a merit bonus is justified before he got here. So this is what the board's really being asked to consider, and it's consistent with the last time Ms. Cunningham served as the interim, is whether the board would like to award a bonus based on the time when Ms. Cunningham reported directly to the board. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying. Go ahead, Rick Burdock, and then I'll come to you, Charlene.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I'm naive because I wasn't there before this, but if I'm hearing the chronological, she got the pay raise to the CEO job. She got that money, and then we cut everybody across the board at RSCVA, right? Ben, they got what was the percentage cut? You got to remind me.
I think it was 10 to 15% depending on the position.
So she got increase and then had to give 15% back or 10 or whatever it is.
I believe she got 20% increase and then a 15% decrease, so a net 5.
Okay, so that's what I thank you. Appreciate that. Just making sense of it all, because it is, like you say, it is a bonus, but seems like not a lot of money when you have to be a CEO and do some of the things that you had to do. And I'm sympathetic as we are in the casino business. We've had to do a lot of layoffs and a lot of things is all you have. And it's not fun. It is not fun. It's scarring. Anyway, my thought.
Madam Mayor, if I can weigh in on. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it. And I apologize. I'm having spotty internet today at best. But I wanted to just share some historical perspective. And I don't think you're wrong in the sense that we do need to continue to investigate, pay equality across the board. And we should start looking at very, very resolute policy in regards to this procedure, because as you pointed out, it's kind of all over the board. But last time, Ms. Cunningham did serve as interim CEO between CEO Baum and Mr. DeLone. We did a lot of stuff at that time, and Ms. Cunningham was extremely influential in a lot of those successes. At that time, we did a strategic plan out of a legislative session that was forced upon us with the new fee that we were given by the legislature. We launched a brand new brand. She did, as you pointed out, have to terminate people during that. She did truly have a number of roles that she played as CEO during that time, and was rightfully so awarded that bonus, and served in it for a good period of time, and also helped with the CEO search process, and at the same time helped us go and land some very major Safari Club and some different programs, and worked with the airport. So her successes during that last round of as interim CEO were tremendous, and the board was very supportive of her, and she did a great job. However, and this does not show, this is not speaking pejoratively on her outcome through COVID. However, COVID was a very difficult time for all of us. The response that we had to get, I mean, a good portion of her term as CEO, our entire industry, our entire state was shut down for about 3 months. And nobody was doing anything. It was kind of like we were just trying to maintain the ship without turning the lights off. But everybody, for the most part, stayed home. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't award her, but she was given an increase in salary for that period of time to serve as interim CEO, which she elected to do and chose to do without the assumption of ever receiving a bonus. And now, being that we've come out of this, we've hired a new CEO and unanimously supported that CEO. I don't feel that this is the right time to do a bonus at this time. It kind of in line with Andy said. I think we should wait and see where our fiscal year ends. See if we can truly look at some of those evaluations, because if you are going to be a CEO, a lot of the things that we too and discussed here at the board are the duties in which we've compensated for. So I see a bonus as if there were added successes during that time. And the first go around, I could see and point out those added successes that she had. But there was just no way that anybody had added successes during COVID. It's just impossible unless you were on the front line, unless you were in a hospital or giving vaccines or doing testing. There really wasn't any added successes this year. And I can't point to any. And I know that the hoteliers can't say that there was any added successes because it was an impossibility. So those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Bob, thank you. And you have an amazing memory. I forgot that we did all those things when Jennifer was interim CEO. That was a lot. So those were really good accomplishments. And I'm really proud of that. The one thing I would say, Bob, do you have maybe your sound on or something someone's getting some echo. There you go, perfect. The one thing I will say, I'm just sort of curious to everyone. I know that I have been on Zoom. I've been breaking records on my Zooms. I don't know about you guys. I've been on like 10 to, I was almost 13 hours the other day because my meetings are out of Washington early in the morning, sometimes at honestly at 4:30. Because it starts at 7:30 there. But anyway, so tremendously long days on Zoom. And then the crazy part, like I've said, I looked down at my Fitbit and it said I'd only taken 15 steps. So as much as I'm breaking records on Zooms, I'm really miserable in the Fitbit arena. So I got to work on that. But my point is that I've never worked harder during this pandemic. And I would imagine a lot of you have never worked harder. And part of that too, and this is actually statistically valid, and they've done studies on this, that one of the reasons is when you're at home, you don't really know when to turn it off, right? It's like, oh, it's 7 o'clock at night, I mean, you're still at home, so you're still kind of working. You don't know how to shift and turn that off. I know I leave City Hall between 6 and 7 most of the time. And, I can shut it off, go home, and then leave it behind. I'm not finding that with Zoom. So I would also remind everyone, I think we all are working more. I can't say that about successes because I think it has been a very challenging landscape, but I would say this, I'm really proud of this team. Everyone has worked really, really hard. You've all been on national panels with me. Businesses coming back in, I would say, to Mr. Chisel, and part of it too, I want to remind everyone that we cut early, which was really wise, right? Because we didn't know what we were going to deal with. We just didn't know. And so, Robert, you've given me a lot of assurance with having $10 million in reserve. You are one of the best in the business when it comes to managing a budget. But one of the big successes is that we meet and beat the goal that we had kind of set out. I think at the time, we thought we might get to 50%, but we got to 100%. Am I correct? I guess, Robert, you could speak to that.
Yeah, so far for the first 6 months of the year, we've beat the budget by twice what our budget was. We're over 100% our budget. I mean, just like everyone, we had troubles and concerns at the beginning, and we did cut early and quickly, whether it was our capital program, whether it was our marketing program, and we did lay off a number of people. We are a lot smaller than we were before. So we did make those changes. And, I would say right now, are we in the best financial health we've ever been? Probably not, but we are in really good, strong financial position. In fact, I bet you we're in better financial position than most local governments in Northern Nevada. But we do that because we cut early and we had a business-like approach, and we're still that way. We're still very fiscally responsible. We're not going wild and spending money we don't have. In fact, we could meet all of the financial policy set forth by the board, whether it's the reserves, whether it's the rainy day funds, whether it's air service. We have built ourselves back up, and we are looking just to December and January. We're still looking solid as we move out of this pandemic. So
yeah, and you're right.
The only other thing I'd point out, we are probably going to be talking to the board about the bond and the potential savings there. So we'll be looking at some more savings coming forward.
Okay, thank you. And
Madam Mayor?
Yeah,
Go ahead. This is Corey. Mr. Farahi has had his hand raised. I just want to make sure that
I can't
notice
see
that.
him. I can't see him on my screen, and I will call on him. So thank you for letting me know. I would also say this: when you lay off people, I know what it's done to us at the City of Reno. That has made my staff have to work 10 times harder to fill in the gaps from all the people we also laid off. And again, I want to remind people that Jennifer did the job of 2 people. I think that that's really important. And I believe the last bonus that we did give to Mr. DeLone was around $100,000. I don't want to be comparing that stuff, but I want people to understand kind of where we got into this practice of giving CEOs bonuses. And again, I think moving forward, we can create some definition of clear policy. So this board, isn't left sort of, kind of being all over the place. I think that's really important. So, and let me just say this, I really believe it's important to invest in the morale of your team and in your people. You are only as good as your people. And I'm lucky, I have amazing people of the city of Reno, and we have amazing people here. All the boards that I serve on, we have amazing people. And I don't want that to get lost in sort of the message, because I think a lot of times that we don't recognize the people that make us truly successful. And that's what everyone I've ever worked with in this organization has been tremendous. So I just want you to know that I value you and your work, because it's tough. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Farahi. I'm sorry I can't see you. If anyone else wants to speak, let me know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Bob, thank you for the history. If you can expand on it a bit more, the idea behind the bonus several years ago was not necessarily to reflect a portion of what the full-time CEO, had they been in that role, would have received, but it was rather a discretionary bonus based on the achievements at the time.
Did we lose him?
I can address that, I think, if it dropped off. The bonus last time, it was couched as a bonus, was 60,000 total. 45 of that was to address a pay discrepancy, and 15 was an added bonus, merit-based added bonus based on performance during the time as interim.
Right. I appreciate that, Ben. So got that. The 45 makes total sense to me. It's the difference in pay between the two positions and the new position that was assumed, more referring to the 15,000. So it was a merit discretionary bonus as determined by the board based on performance during that time, separate from anything that would have been due a full-time CEO had they been in that position.
Correct.
Okay. And so I guess Bob's comments before about any type of exceptional performance during COVID, not to knock anyone, but I have to support his thinking that really, while many of us, if not all of us, were working harder during COVID, I'm not sure any of our entities, whether it be public or private, had any exceptional results of any kind. I'm not familiar with any businesses that I've spoken with, CEOs of multiple companies, both locally and that are giving bonuses, unless you're working for a company that actually exceeded your performance of the prior year, which few and far between is your Amazon, I suppose. So completely understand what you've shared, Madam Mayor, and God bless Jennifer for stepping in now twice to help shepherd the ship. And we are all grateful to her for that. I just find it hard to approve an additional bonus. I fully agree with the addition of the delta in compensation between our prior position and the CEO's role. That makes complete sense to me. But to award a bonus for one position when I don't believe we're doing it for any others, and I don't believe it's being done in most private sector business when everyone has struggled through last now nearly a year. I'm not sure that a bonus makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. I also want everyone to be reminded, I think, obviously crystal ball here, but I think we have to remember, I think we're going to have tremendous success moving forward. You don't have that kind of success unless you put the work in. And I think, even Charles, with his bonus, he kind of alluded to that he'll come back to the board and ask them. And I think success happens when you put the work in. And I think the work has been put in. And I think we will reap those rewards moving out of this. So I just want everyone to remember that everyone is working really hard. I'm going to throw out a motion to get us moving along, because I'm going to have to jump off pretty quickly. Go ahead, Charlene, and then
I just have a I have a few comments, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this issue and I'm looking at a 49% revenue loss year to date. And I fully understand in 2015, but this isn't 2015 and we didn't have COVID and we weren't in a recession. So the fiscal budget and books for RSCVA in 2015 were a very different financial situation. And I think with the furloughs that RSCVA had to cut to help right the ship, it really comes down to me, it's not a reflection on performance. And I totally appreciate the fact Jennifer, stepped up for a second time, the hard work she did. But I would agree with Mr. Farahi. Everybody on every level, from the government level to private sector, is working, their rear ends off to even stay afloat. Their businesses who are gone, that will never be back. Their businesses hanging on by a thread. And it's reality of COVID right now. So it absolutely doesn't reflect on Jennifer's performance, but I think right now, today, it's a bad optic to be giving a merit, and I just can't support a bonus. I absolutely support the temporary salary increase, and maybe as we look forward, the policy on temporary CEOs and how you handle that could be may be more clearly defined within the policy of this board. But a merit bonus at this time, not a reflection on Jennifer, but a reflection on our budget and our revenue loss, and us still trying to climb out of really rough times. So I appreciate the time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Charlene. All right, with that being said, any other comments? If not, I'm going to throw out their motion and you can support it or you don't have to. I think, that's a great part about our country, democracy, right? So anyway, any other comments? No? Okay, I would like to throw out a motion that we bring this back and I agendize it for at least a 15% bonus, because you were the CEO. Either you were or you weren't, and you were. So I would like to do that because I meant to, and Charles, I apologize. I know it says 15,000, but I should have been more, I should have watched over that. That's my fault. So thanks, Charles. But bring it back and to approve a 15% bonus.
So Madam Mayor, if I could just interject, we can probably do that without having to take action. So we can take no action today, and then at the at our March meeting, we can agendize it however you'd like.
Okay. All right. Again, perfect. I think that would work. So no action. Is that right, Ben?
Correct.
Okay.
And if I may ask, just because the rest of the board likely won't be in the meetings when it's being discussed, to add to the next agenda. So now, rather than proposing the $15,000 to reflect the same amount that was given several years ago for outstanding performance and verifiable metrics, we're proposing a greater amount on the next agenda for discussion.
Yeah, and the reason that I thought we should do that is because we've been, I guess it looks like we've been doing percentages. Charles will be a 35%.
But I think we need clarification of it's 15% of what though? 15% of the salary that she earned during the time she was or
right. What is standard, Ben? I would imagine is Charles 35% of what his salary is?
So Charles's contract provides he's 35% of his contract amount prorated for partial years. But I think I want to caution before we go too far down the road on discussing the 15%. We would need to agendize that. Today we're agendized to award up to 15,000. If we want to change that to a percentage, then we'll just need to re-agendize it, discuss it at the March meeting, and it'll be agendized in a manner to say a merit bonus and an amount not to exceed 15%. So between now and then, we can figure out what 15% is, what that number is. And then the board will basically have the discretion at that March meeting to decide whether it wants to award that full amount or a portion of it. But I'd like to avoid going on the road too far on the 15% idea right now until we agendize it for future.
Okay, or which it will be less. We could just vote on this today, the 15,000. So I'm fine with modifying my motion. Let's vote to, my motion would be to award $15,000 in a bonus to Jennifer Cunningham. That would be my motion then. Is that easier?
But that's certainly we're agendized to do that today if you'd like.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion out there. Is there a second? All right. No second. So motion fails. All right. Then I would like to have a motion to bring it back to the next board meeting for 15%.
So we actually don't need a motion on that. Madam Mayor, you can set the agenda. So you can just agendize it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Wait, what is the
What's the motion?
The motion.
Motion is to bring it back to the next agenda.
And I thought Ben said it's not necessary because you get to choose what's on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm trying to
Correct.
get everyone's consensus here and just part of the conversation for collaboration. Okay, so I have a motion.
I will share, Madam Mayor, if I may. I do find it a little disappointing that we did have conversation about it. It seems the majority of the board is not in favor of even a $15,000 bonus at this time. And it seems as though despite that, we're now going to go forward with an even greater bonus discussion at the next meeting. I just would hope that some consideration would be given to the discussion that we've just had, with all due respect.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel, I appreciate it. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Charles, we promise we won't be this hard on you. Okay, moving on. And I know another uncomfortable conversation here, but I think it's important. I think there was some confusion and there wasn't some clarity on the last board meeting. So I did ask Charles to bring it back. And I think Charles is in a tough position. He hasn't been here. So he doesn't know any of the discussions and so those types of things. So I want, to recognize that. I wanted to bring this back because I was not at one of the board meetings when you guys did discuss this. And I wanted to bring it back because I wanted to clear up some of the confusion. And I think also bringing it back because we have new board members. I want to remind everyone, this is not a bonus. This is not a pay raise. This is to look at, make the employees whole of the pay cuts that they did take. And so that was one of the things. And I had to go back and look at the minutes. And matter of fact, I did have, Corey, I sent you a video. I don't know if you can play it because sometimes board minutes are very different than what the board actually says. And so I had to go back and research because I wanted some clarity of what the discussion was and what the majority of the board or the comments of the board, I shouldn't say everyone, but the comments of the board to figure out, why there was confusion and how we got there. So with that being said, Corey, do you have that?
Do.
Thank you.
I still want to remain on the record that having furloughed so many employees and eliminated positions throughout the organization, that then the double whammy of taking a pay cut for the entire organization does not seem appropriate to me. I don't know of any quasi-government agency or government agency at this point in time, local agency, that has done these kind of draconian cuts, much less than asked for a pay cut from the remaining employees. So I would like to suggest that if we exceed revenues as predicted by Robert and the hope that we all have that occurs, that these pay differentials be restored by year end.
I think it's our intent as the Finance Committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on the Finance Committee, is that if we don't cut right away, we can't ever catch up again. So we're cutting right away, not knowing what the future holds, but it's absolutely our intent to bring our employees back as quickly as possible and to restore their pay levels. That to me is a priority.
First of all, I want to thank the Finance Board for their recommendations, but it has been challenging, and we will work diligently to make sure that everybody was restored to what they were previously to the best of our abilities moving forward.
To Ms. Silver's comments, I think they're very appropriate, and I have shared the same concern. There were some things that we did discuss with the staff about looking at, when things do return back to some type of a normalcy, that we would look at some type of a bonus for lost income, with the priority of trying to get team members back as soon as we possibly could.
Mr. Chisholm mentioned that $220,000 will be saved per month by furloughing these individuals. On top of that, is a 10% reduction in salary meaningful from a financial standpoint, or is it just further demoralizing the people left behind?
How do we look at some type of a reimbursement process at the end of this? We've asked these employees to kind of take this hit, and is there a way to kind of get that back in their pocket, so to speak, when we start coming out of that? So I would like the committee to have that further discussion as well, that once we kind of come out and we see some revenues coming back and we're returning to somewhat normal, whatever the new normal will be, that we have an opportunity to make good for these folks.
Okay, I think it might have cut off there, but I did want to provide some context because of the new board members that are sitting here. And I also wanted to clear up any confusion that there was amongst the staff as well. So if anyone wants to have discussion, I'm happy to throw out a motion so we can just move on. It's,
Madam Mayor.
Oh, go ahead.
Madam Mayor.
Go right ahead.
Madam Mayor, I assume you teed up that video, and thank you. It was good to see what we were all thinking back then, and my thinking hasn't changed. What I was addressing at that time was the reinstatement of the pay. Some people took 10% and some people took 15% cuts. Just to be clear, I, at that time, was addressing the point in time when those pay cuts would be restored, so that people who had taken a 10 or 15% pay cut were no longer doing that. And I guess I just need a clear understanding from Charles. Have people's pay been restored, those remaining? Because we didn't just furlough, people were terminated. So are the folks who took the 10 and 15% cuts back at their original pay?
And all current employees that are still with us have their pay has been restored, yes.
Good, then that was what I was hoping would be done. So thank you.
Okay, I appreciate your clarification, Anne. I think that's important. Okay. So thank you.
And if I can also ask, the number of eliminated positions, have any of those been returned yet? Rehired?
So no. I talked to our HR people, and we had 16 furloughs or layoffs, my understanding from Julie. Julie, you can weigh in. And 4 of those positions have been brought back. Can you confirm that, Julie?
Sorry, Charles, had to get myself on unmute. Actually, after I went back to my records, we actually recalled 6.5 positions. We laid off 10. We had 3 take advantage of our voluntary retirement program, and 1 person took another job. So I believe we lost 21 positions.
Great, thank you. And just a couple of other points that I would mention. I think, and I appreciate the reminder of the video. I don't think we are back to pre-pandemic. I believe our budgets have done better than we expected, but I believe looking at the December numbers that just came out, we're still about 49% down in room revenues year to date compared to prior year. So I don't think we are quite out of the woods yet, and I don't know of many DMOs that are or any businesses in that matter that are providing, that makeup. Now, yes, it's important to get people back to where they were. Again, like the other item, I would suggest that we push this to the end of the fiscal year, and perhaps there is a way of looking at a bonus situation based on merit, based on performance for the prior year that we could ask Charles to weigh in on and give that input to the board, as opposed to doing it now mid-year when we are certainly not out of the revenue hole that we're experiencing right now. So that would just be my thoughts.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Of all of the private business leaders on the board, who in either for themselves or their organizations had pay cuts during the period, if I may ask, whoever's comfortable sharing? I certainly was one of them.
We were at the Nugget.
We were.
We were at the Nugget.
Yes.
GSR as well. And Rick, did you at the Tri Properties as well?
Yes.
We eliminated a position.
Okay. Right. And at any of your organizations, have you done anything regarding retroactive pay?
No.
All right. Daniel, any other questions?
And in terms of another city organization or regional organization, the airport also took pay cuts to be fiscally conservative and protect the organization, and none of those team members received retroactive pay afterwards either. I think this sets a dangerous precedent if we're talking about morale, for the morale of all the others in this community who took pay cuts and did not receive retroactive pay. And I think we've spoken about it ad nauseum, but from my perspective, this is not appropriate.
And Daniel, I appreciate your comments, and I would just ask you this. You did that all across the board from the CEO to the rest of your team, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And our CEO went to zero and didn't receive any retroactive pay.
Well, and again, I would just say in the future, it needs to be like that from the CEO on down, and that's not the situation that we do have here. So I'm going to throw out a motion.
Are you referring to our new CEO who was just hired at the time when the pay was brought back?
That's what I'm saying, that everyone across the board should be in alignment so that it's a team effort as well. So
correct me if I'm mistaken, but when Charles was hired, that was the same moment where we reinstated everyone else's pay, or was there a period where Charles was hired and the rest of the staff had not been brought back to their
well, I
full
guess
level?
the issue would be the board brought him on during COVID, and it should have been across the entire organization. So that's all I'm saying moving forward. Again, I think going back to policies of what's consistent, so that everyone in the organization is doing this together, just like you did at the airport. And I appreciate you, Daniel, for also bringing it up at a board meeting. I was not able to attend that board meeting due to the loss of my brother, but I appreciate you weighing in on that, Daniel. I believe you were the only one to do so. Anyway, I'm going to throw out a motion to get us moving, because I've got
a quick question there before you do that.
27 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Sturbins.
So I just think we need to be careful. My understanding is a board of policy, we're supposed to be dealing directly with the CEO, which would make sense about dealing with Jennifer's compensation. Dealing with employee compensation, I think that's definitely getting into Charles' territory. And I do recognize that a lot of the staff made sacrifices, picked up extra duties, and some may think that there's some compensation needed there, and some may not. And I think there's some compensation needed side, but I do think we need to be careful about the policy and us getting into employee compensation, not just dealing with the CEO.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that, Mr. Sturbins. Again, probably going back to beating a dead horse, having policy, we don't have these policies in place. And it leads us back to the board to make these decisions, and they are not, they're not in conjunction of, what we may have done in the past, or it's very vague and sort of all over the place. And I don't want to put the board in that position. So I appreciate that. I think you're right. We've got to get back to policies that we can adhere to make these decisions easier for the board and say, here are the guidelines and here's what we follow. So to move us on.
Can I say something, Madam Mayor?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Just thinking out loud, if we're going to wait till June to see how business bounces back, I'm just suggesting some kind of the middle of it here is maybe looking at some kind of structure that is legal, Ben, and that Charles, at your discretion, you can award these employees that lost their money something back in a structure. I don't know. I'm just saying, is there a bonus structure for them if they, they took this hit and then all of a sudden we start rolling in June, July, or when's it end? July. If we have a good year, then we could consider it. Is that something that we could get to as a board, or is that overstepping, the legal part of it?
Rick, are you asking me to weigh in, Rick? I'm not sure if I'm supposed to answer to that.
Oh, no, I think you could do that for future. There's anything we could bring back to the board. I think that would be okay. Ben, certainly, we run these things by Ben before we do them. So that's certainly an option that we can do moving forward. I think it's a good suggestion, Rick, and we'll continue to monitor it. I think that's important, right? And we'll be able to monitor the successes as we move on, I think. So I think that's a good suggestion. I'm going to throw out again a motion because I've got to go, and I apologize. I appreciate everyone's dialogue here. Whether you agree with me or not, I still appreciate you. We're all, wanting to root for Reno. We're all here. That's the goal. Whether we can do that together or not, that's just part of the process. Some of us may believe, and we might not support each other on one vote, but I guarantee you we will support each other on other votes moving forward. I always say that there's something we can all agree on, that beer tastes good, or if you don't drink beer, then maybe it's ice cream, so because politics is like that. A lot of times people don't agree with you, and that's okay. And so I want everyone to know when we leave this board that we walk away with the same goal in mind, and that's to make this board successful and the region successful and the people that are behind the success of the RSCVA. So I just want to remind everyone that. I think that is important to keep in mind, really what the bigger and broader goal is. So my motion would be to, this is not a bonus. This is to give them their, the reimbursement of I believe it's $188,000, Robert Chisel, to make these employees whole. And part of that is you have an employee that she's a single mom. She lost her husband, 2 kids. And you talk about COVID being hard. I think, she makes under, $40,000 a year. You talk about, that might not be a lot to you guys, or, it's a lot to someone. And so when COVID is hard, it is hard. It's very hard. And so I think this board has done a tremendous job, but also the staff of doing a tremendous job of working hard to keep us right on track. So I want you to know with that motion, I appreciate everyone's done in the organization. I want you to know that. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Mayor, could you clarify your motion? Your motion is to provide retroactive?
Yes.
Beyond the reinstated pay, it's to provide retroactive pay to everyone.
So whatever they took in that loss, just to reimburse them for that. All right.
So, Madam Mayor, can I take just a shot at restating that just to make sure we're all clear?
Go ahead.
Basically, the motion is to make the pay reinstatement retroactive back to the effective date of the mandatory reductions. And the total salary cost of the RSCVA is an amount not to exceed $189,000.
Yes, to reinstate their reductions. Yes, This is not, I want to make it clear, this is not a bonus. This is not a raise. This is to make them whole and reinstate that. So that would be my motion. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? No second. All right, motion fails. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Moving on. Jennifer, I think we're moving back to you for your marketing update.
Yes, if it may please the board.
Sorry to cut you off. And I've got to run, so I'm handing it all to you. Okay, thank you.
If it may please the board, this has been a very long meeting, and I would like to recommend we bring the marketing presentation back at our next board meeting. If that is okay, Miss Silver, Chair Silver, if that is okay, that's my recommendation.
Jennifer, I appreciate your recommendation. Let me ask our CEO, Charles, what are your thoughts about this? Because Jennifer has pointed out this meeting is going on now 3.5 hours. Not that it's not worth it, and we aren't all terribly interested in everything going on, but to her point, Charles, what's your thought at this point?
My thought is that it's been a very long meeting. The marketing team's done a lot of hard work to get us to where they are, and they deserve to have their work shown. But I think it's in the best interest that we probably wait till the next meeting.
So I would agree with that wholeheartedly. We're obviously all exhausted. However, I would like to know though, because again, we're meeting every other month now, right? So she won't bring it to us until March. I just kind of would like to know, are we actively marketing presently, or are we still on? Are we on a pause, or what are we doing right now?
And we're still actively marketing, but it's to travel and tenders. And Jennifer and Christina and Ben and the whole team has been working on things. But it's very specific to people that are open to travel in a safe environment under the current conditions right now. And we will come back in March with some additional information of how we're going to turn on the faucet with our marketing dollars in a responsible way. Jennifer, anything else you want to throw into that as far as what we're doing currently?
No, you characterized it really well. We have not pulled out completely. We're still digital, so we can pivot and move very easily and responsibly. So we're ramping up more spending. I'll be quick, pre-2016, for the decade before, we had about $1 million in media each year annually. And right now for the next 6 months, 5 months of this fiscal year, our budget's 2.5 million. So we do have the money, we're out there, and will increase as soon as we see some more movement in the marketplace.
Jen, one of the things that we can do is I can ask Jennifer and team to send out maybe like just a quick written summary of kind of what we were going to cover today. So at least you get that information, and we will come back in March and then present where we're at.
Thank you.
That would be great. If that's okay, Shannon, we'll just look forward to Jennifer's briefing. And Ben, if I'm permitted at this point, I'd like to adjourn this meeting and thank everyone for their participation and the long hours spent. Yes.
Anne, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I need to ask public comment.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
We do have a public comment that came in during the meeting from a Mr. David Smith. I have circulated that email to the entire board of directors, and it will be added to the minutes for this meeting.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that. Yes, I think most of us did receive that, so we'll make sure that's added to the minutes. Ben, am I all right in proceeding now to ask for adjournment? All right, yep. So I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your long time and your patience and dedication. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone who joined today's meeting. We will have our next Board of Directors meeting on March 25th. Have a great day.